That one is Brian. Nick, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Thank you, Michael. All right. Let me call to order the meeting of the Highlands Town Board of Commissioners for April 17th, 2025. Our second item on the agenda is a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Now we'll all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Our next item is the statement of conflict of interest that I will call to the attention of board members. If there's any conflict of interest on any item on this agenda tonight, of course, you should declare that conflict before we address the issue. Item number 4, public comment. I will now open the floor. If anyone would like to come forward and make a public comment to the board, please do so and state your name for our record. And hopefully you can keep your minutes to 3 minutes or your time. Thank you. Mike.
My name is Michael King, Vice President of Mirror Lake Improvement Association. My comment is that my name is King, but it wasn't I who had the dream. It was Pat Gleason. And his dream was to dredge Mirror Lake, all of it. Unfortunately, the money raised by Mirror Lake Improvement Association was not enough, not even close. We are proud of what we did accomplish, but we have failed to make our dream a reality. To our fellow Mirror Lake lovers who are rightfully disappointed, we are truly sorry we could not do more. That said, Mirror Lake deeply appreciates the efforts of Mayor Taylor and our state represented legislators, I should say, who in funding the restoration of Mirror Lake to the extent those additional funds allow. We trust in your decision on that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Would anyone else like to make a public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to the next item, and that is to review and approve the agenda. Do we have any changes, additions to the proposed agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to propose an addition, I guess potentially 17 and move the closed session down. There was a legislative action memorandum letter that got circulated earlier, and I'd like for us to discuss that,
Okay,
if that's agreeable with everybody.
pending legislative action.
Yes.
Okay. We will put that down. We have any more changes to the agenda? I will entertain a motion for approval as amended.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, our next item will be the approval of the March 20th special meeting minutes. That was the retreat. Do we have any additions to those minutes or clarifications?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. Then the March 20th regular meeting minutes. We had that meeting right after the retreat, the regular meeting. Do we have any changes, clarifications to those minutes?
Second.
All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand, saying aye. Thank you very much. And then the approval of the April 8th special meeting minutes. Do we have any changes to those?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye.
I was not here.
And you can't vote because you weren't here. Thank you, Commissioner Dotson. Okay, and then approval of the April 10th special meeting minutes. Do we have any changes to those minutes?
Move to be approved.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. The next item will be reports, starting with the mayor. And let me go ahead and give an update on a couple of things. Our roads, the debris from the hurricanes and the storms have been pretty much removed. The county, the Corps of Engineers brought in contractors and they've been working for several weeks and those areas have been removed. Although it's not completely on Hicks Road, you know, there was a lot of work with Duke Energy with their enhancing their transmission lines and removing trees and the hurricane damage. They were working on cleaning up Hicks Road as late as last week. One of the things that kind of frustrates me, and I talked with the town manager about it, is we still have communication lines down on Hicks Road outside the city limits that have been there since Helene. What is ironic, this week, there was Frontier, Verizon, they were running additional fiber lines. I think it's very unfortunate that they haven't put those lines, communication lines back up. They're becoming an eyesore now. And also we have several places in town where lines, communications line fell. They were on a sidewalk, public right of way or public vehicular area. There's still a couple that are still down. You know, I'd like to work on a town ordinance giving the communications people 30 days to reconnect their lines once they have fallen on the ground. I don't think we can allow them to continue to leave lines on the ground. It's just not good for the tourists, for our local people who like to get out and walk and so forth. So I'm going to be trying to develop an idea about that and bring it to the board. The plateau cleanup that the chamber sponsors, that's going to be this next Saturday, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, April the 26th. If you'd like to volunteer, please call the chamber at 526-2112, because that's always a very important community event. Then, Commissioner Dotson, I had a whole report on these bills that have been proposed that I think all the municipalities are concerned about. I'll hold off on that report until we get to the item on the list, item 17, about the legislative situation in Raleigh. So that's my report, and I will now turn it over to the commissioners for any reports or updates.
I have one thing, not so minor, but just wanted to point out, we just went through, as you can see, we had page 3 through 40 were minutes from 4 different meetings. And anybody that's been to meetings, watch us talk, and sometimes we go a little bit circular and then we come around to the front again. So I just wanted to say thank you to Gibby, because these are, we just went through 4 and had we hardly ever make a correction. So I
Yeah.
just want to thank her.
Thank you. I agree completely. Any other reports? Hearing none, I'll now ask our town manager, Josh Ward, to give his report.
Well, we have good news. The Dog Mountain Waterline Replacement Project was approved through DEQ and DWI. The bids will go out, I think, next week through our engineering company. The bid opening will be May 22nd, following all procurement laws. That will put it on the town board agenda for the June meeting for approval for the low bidder. So we'll get that started mid-year. That'll be great. The electric, the third feed in from Highlands Falls, we had a pre-con meeting this week to review everything with our electric crew and with Southeastern's electric crew. They will be starting work on that on April the 30th. And they're going to try to work on a schedule of 8 days on, 6 days off, because we're coming in from a long way away. So that'll interfere with one weekend, or every other weekend. Traffic will be heavy, starting April 30th when they come in, and that's going to last all the way till the 1st of September, like the first week of September. So everybody's going to have to be patient, out 64, between, well, basically to the city limits area there at Sherwood Forest. All that line will be rebuilt. There'll be new poles installed and new line pulled over those 4 months. So again, I think them working 8 days on, that'll give 6 days off. I think we'll give a little bit of relief, but everybody will just have to be patient as they start work there on that project. It's a critical third feed into town, and it's our highest loads are in the winter, so it will be finished before the winter time. Duke Energy has about 3 or 4 weeks of work to do. It's supposed to be started really soon as well, so should all come together at the same time. And then Town Hall will be closed tomorrow for Good Friday. That's all I have.
But garbage pickup will continue.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Our next item will be the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions about the consent agenda that was in your meeting packet?
I move we approve it.
Second. All in favor, raise your hand. Please signify by saying aye. Thank you very much. All right. Our next item will be Hotwire Communications update. Periodically, Hotwire, as part of the contract, will come and brief us on what they're doing and their progress and so forth. And we have Mike Hall tonight of Hotwire, who will be coming and making a presentation. So Mike, come on up to the front.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Good. All right. I'm gonna have to use my copy here. So appreciate the opportunity. We really enjoy being a partner here in town. I was looking back at the calendar, and this summer will be 3 years since we launched. And it's been an incredible 3 years. And that's the best way I'll describe it. But so I'll take you through. We'll do I'll put the first slide in here, the one called Town of Highlands, really more for my benefit than for you all. But it was just so that I could remind myself of what we have here and what we're trying to accomplish. Also put a couple of timeline details in there. Third slide. There we go. And I think what's important is to understand that this is a seasonal town. And I'm not telling anybody here that's something that they don't know, but when I'm dealing with people from outside, whether they're tourists or visitors and or internal to Hotwire, I have to explain that everybody's not here full-time all the time. And it's not necessarily an easy job to get a hold of everybody. September 21, in September of 2021, the lease agreement was signed. In April, we launched our website and our local phone number and the store. And then in the summer of 2022, I was here then. And that's when we took our first orders and started installing customers. And then I just fast forwarded it to today, the spring of 2025. We're close to 1,000 customers, very happy customers. We get a lot of good feedback from them. We stay in touch with our customers, both residential and commercial. And I put that map there just to remind everybody what the service area is that we're talking about. Anything in the black area is what we committed to building to. And anything right outside of that will be, I guess, afterwards. And the challenge for me is those areas right outside of that area are all calling in and wanting to get service from us. So next slide, please. This is just, again, I know we have competition here. I got competition elsewhere. There are three things that we really stake our business on, and it's the technology leadership. So we're 100% fiber, symmetrical fiber to every home. We're community focused, and that's going to be apparent as I go through the presentation. And then we offer concierge level service, which is just simply, we want to treat the customers like we would be treated. I know that sounds simple, but it really works. And again, I mentioned these things and showed the slide before because it'll make sense as you understand some of our tactics in addressing the market here. And I won't go into any more than that. Next slide, please. So the team, what's important to me, and hopefully to you guys, is what's in yellow. They are full-time, 100% Highlands-based employees, 9 of them. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of what they do each and every day. I know many of you know a lot of these folks. It's hard to go anywhere without somebody not knowing who Will Beck is, or Jeremy and John McCardle and some of these other folks. So just again, wanted to show you that, the importance of that, because I know there's not many other companies that have that type of presence to support this market. Next slide, please. Okay, I didn't do this on purpose because I knew you were going to be here, but number one, we immediately realized we needed to be a partner with the chamber, and you've been a wonderful partner for us, and we love being involved with you all. Some other things I think that are worth mentioning is the Wi-Fi in the park. I was there before coming up to here, and got on the network, and it works really quick. It's very fast. You'll see in another slide coming up that we're preparing to upgrade that to give it a better boost and to handle more residents and customers and visitors during some of the big events like the motoring event. Again, Kim, I didn't put this in here for you, but the newspaper has been wonderful for us because it's a great way to let people know who we are. We had to learn quickly that you can't use the U.S. mail system here because people are part-time and they're not getting their mail. It's amazing that also translates into understanding how we had to set up billing for a lot of our customers. You don't send them a paper bill. So anyhow, the use of the magazines and the social media has been very helpful to us. We got the agreement signed with Haywood EMC, so we're able to actually get service within that black area that I showed you earlier, the black line. We're able to service those customers now. The big next one is Duke, and that's over a year in the works. Legacy network migrations. So we inherited I call it the legacy network. That's just the terminology I was using, I guess, in my past life, different businesses I was with, telecommunications. And it was mostly radio, but for a lot of it, there is also some legacy fiber. And we had to get all those migrated over from the Azatel system over to us. The only ones remaining would be people just holding on and saying they didn't have a need to switch to our service because the price was, at a good price point for them. Special sales promos for residents. So we also understood, unlike some other markets that I deal with, the gig service is important. So that's 1 gigabit down and up. And we coupled that with some of our TV packages, and it's been very attractive. We did a special promo price. That's one of the things that we do advertising on. And it's proven very popular with the residents. Customer referral program. So you'll see also, again, there's a rhyme or reason why I put some of the things in here, and that is one of our probably top 2 challenges is being able to get a hold of residents and or even know who they are that own some of the homes here. And that's because they're not here. They don't come here. So what we did was we put what we call a customer referral program. And if you're an existing customer and you refer somebody to us and they sign up, you can get a credit on your invoice. That's been very popular. And then realtor events. I put that in there again. There's a rhyme and reason for things I put in here, but the realtor events is we realize because of the absentee ownership, a lot of people are renting their places. So by partnering with the realtors who are also doing the VRBOs and things like that, we're able to reach those folks and through them and get them signed up. That's been very popular as well. Next slide. Just a couple more, and this one I put community next to it. We're big sponsors and supporters of the Motoring Festival, Arts and Crafts, Food and Wine, from the standpoint of every one of those screamed loudly that they needed good Wi-Fi in the park. So that's what prompted us to do the first upgrade to the park, and now we're going to do a second one. That allows them, you all, to be able to get on the network, the internet, and to do transactions, which was a biggie. Highland, the school career day was wonderful this year. And I know Will and Emily both participated in that. The students got a lot out of that. We can't wait to do it again. We weren't sure what we were getting ourselves into, but it really turned out to be a really popular event. Again, this is the result of the local employees we have, but the blood drive, pickleball, which was done for the first time last year, the Rotary's already asked us to participate again in that. We're going to be a sponsor. So that's proven to be good for us. The fire department, we provide the video services there for the fire department, and that's beautiful state-of-the-art fire department. And then the last thing I'll mention is hurricane donations. And we didn't publicize this or talk about this at all, but I thought I'd mention it here tonight because it just lets you know our commitment to the community. So again, my local team was able to reach out to places that were looking for donations, and we made sure it wasn't like the same places that maybe everything else was going to. All right, what you probably want to know about or hear about more is the next slide, please. So completed communities. As you can see, I won't go through all those, but those are all the communities where fiber wasn't in them or to them. So we have 2 challenges here. One is to get the fiber to a community. The second is to get fiber, what we call as a way of a drop, to the house. So getting fiber to the community is the first step, and then doing the drops to the house is the second step. And that's the difference between what you'll hear us say, OSP outside plant versus inside plant, which would be inside the home. But I'm real pleased to tell you that, here we are 3 years later. I know it's not necessarily on time for getting all these completed, but you'll soon understand why when I go through some more of the slides. I'm going to stop there and ask if there's any questions about what you see on this sheet or on this slide.
Now, some of these were underground.
Without a doubt, yeah. So we'd have to do underground and also aerial. We prefer to do underground, but in some cases, it's just not feasible.
Okay.
So that brings me to the next slide. Oh, I'm out of sorts. My apologies. So upcoming neighborhoods and projects, you can see upper and lower Brushy Face. You wouldn't believe the cost to get services there and how many drill bits we've lost or broken to try to get it up through in there. But we're making progress. I believe we're pulling fiber there this week through some conduit. So we're making some progress. Chestnut Run, Hummingbird Circle, you'll see all these are on the horizon here. And then upgrade Founders Park, which you heard me talk about. And then Main Street, I know Kay, I know you, Mr. Mayor, we would love to be able to provide that. So it's been a challenge from a technological standpoint, from a fiber standpoint, And so we've identified the building owners, and we're going to try to make an attempt to see if we can get some access points, as they call them, APs, strung up and down. The goal is to do 4th Street, Main Street, and be able to provide that service free of charge to the residents and tourists. Next slide. Challenges. Okay. Homeowner contact information. Like I say, we weren't given and aren't provided, and I can understand, but for most of the residents, we didn't have their contact information. The only people that we had contact information for was the existing legacy network customers. Anyone else, we didn't necessarily know who the owner was. We couldn't go knock on doors, and we weren't going to necessarily put door hangers out and things like that. Some of the tactics that are used in the sales environment. So we're relying on some of the sales tactics that I mentioned before, which is the referral program, advertising, talking to the realtors, doing the VRBOs and things like that. I just mentioned reaching seasonal. So that's why, again, there's a method to why I put in one of the first pages that it's a population of 11,000, or excuse me, you have 1,100 full-time and 3,000 part-time, right? That's a lot of people that we can't get in touch with. So reaching the residential seasonal guest. Easements. So when I talk about completed communities, you're going to understand why there's several communities we can't get into. It's because we can't get an easement signed by someone, or either it's an individual that owns a piece of property that we would have to get through to get to the rest of the neighbors. And those neighbors want us badly. We have orders for these folks, but we can't do them until we get it signed. And or a whole neighborhood that is maybe part of an association. So I'll have a slide on that in a second. Duke Poll, they're just really tough to deal with. That's all I'm going to say about that. But once we get that completed, we can do things like get out to the hospital, get out to some of the residents in Highland Falls and Hicks Road and things like that. And now we have this issue with the poles that have been just replaced and waiting for power and all that stuff. So terrain, hard rock, I don't need to tell you that we're a company based out of Florida. We're used to the sand. And here we are, having to get through a lot of hills and valleys and mountains and things like that. And then weather. My goodness, the weather changes here pretty quick. I'm out of Charlotte, but I've probably been here several hundred times in the last 3 years. But the wind, snow, ice, lightning, it will knock stuff out. It'll knock a tree branch down. And then, of course, the hurricane was unbelievable, right? I think this town, fared well compared to some of the other towns around us. Next slide, please. Oh, you're good. All right. Easement challenges. I'm just naming them. If anybody can reach out to me or help me with any of these, I would appreciate it. The only one on here that I think we have made some progress, and that's Chestnut Run and Donald Ross. Donald Ross, in fact, is going to have to wait until September because where it's situated in Highlands Country Club, which is near, I think, some of their amenities that they offer. They don't want to disrupt that or have us doing any work over the summer. But the other 4 are very challenging. And like I said, it might be an individual or it might be a president of an HOA that's holding us up from being able to get through. And again, any of those 6, there are customers that want us very desperately. So questions on that?
My observation would be this: when we entered the contract, y'all committed to doing the underground. If y'all've made a good faith effort, done all you can, and if someone or an association refuses to give the easements, then you've
That's
met
right.
your obligation.
Well, it's killing me because I don't like to turn away someone because,
I understand.
we're blocked, I'm full believer we're going to get through to all these. So I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. Other challenges? Just a couple of areas. Again, any help from you all, if anybody knows someone. I think Webmont and Watkins is a Duke situation, so I'm not able to get through there yet. Stony Creek, we will, but that's the one I think that you all are waiting. You got approval for the grant, and now you're waiting to do the work. Again, we have customers that are residents that want the service. Hummingbird, that's a make-ready. I'm sorry, I'm using some lingo in the business, but that's a telephone pole where some other service providers are hung and they need to move in order to let us on. We end up having to be the ones that pay to fix that, and it's their mistake. Just thought I'd mention that. So, and then Highgate, I don't think we know who owns it, or the gates are closed, so we can't get contact in there at all. I just thought I'd throw it on there. All right, next. All right, Main Street Wi-Fi, talked about, boost the park and the Wi-Fi, and just our continued commitment. Again, we're really involved here. We really like working here, and we hope to continue the partnership with you all. I thank you.
Can I ask you a question? And if you'd explain, the challenge on the Main Street Wi-Fi, it'd be easy to just put some antennas out and you'd have some drop off here and there. What you're trying to do is have boosters throughout the whole Wi-Fi network where you don't have any drops or loss of connectivity.
So the
Is that
boost
right?
is in the park. So the park, we already have access points hung, two at the ice skating rink and two over by the stage. And there's a couple of areas where we think if we could put a couple more access points, like the Bank of America building, which I know is sold or about to be sold, and or the bathrooms, believe it or not, if that could hold. But the problem is you have to find a power source. You have to get permission, of course. So that's just to boost the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi works perfect there. It's just like during the motoring event when from 11 a.m. to about 2 p.m., there are like 1,000 people walking around. And it's, if everybody's getting on the internet at the same time, it's a little challenging. Main Street, it sounds like you'd be able to do it real easily, but the fiber in Main Street is behind the buildings. It runs up and down the side of each of those, the two streets on either side. And so the fiber's not into the Main Street. So I got to find a way to get the fiber to the building, through the building, and then an access point hung on the outside. And then again, you have to find a place to power it. So it maybe is partnering with the businesses in there, but it's not just the business. I have to get the owner of the building to agree to let us put an AP up.
Okay.
But it's very doable. And once we get the okay, the green light, it can go up rather quickly because the fiber's in place right behind the buildings.
Any other questions?
No, thank you all.
Thank you, Mike,
Yeah.
for coming and presenting. Okay, the next item, number 10, the Chamber of Commerce building lease. Nick, that contract that we had developed was sent to the chamber. I think Kay's here tonight. If Kay would like to come and respond to the contract, we'll let you have the floor.
Well, I'm gonna let Tricia speak. I know you have met her before and probably all of you know
Right.
her. But she is our past chair. Bly wanted to be here again tonight, but had a work commitment and could not be.
Great. Thank you for letting us speak to all of you tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to address you regarding the lease agreement for the building that houses the Highlands Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center. I'm here to respectfully request that the town of Highlands renew our triple net lease at $1 per year for another 10-year term, continuing the arrangement that was unanimously approved by the town board in November of 2012. The building that we occupy today represents a significant act of generosity and community vision. In October of 2012, Jane Woodruff donated $700,000 to the town, specifically for purchasing this building from Gus and Jan Lard. The Lards themselves contributed substantially to this vision by accepting the $700,000 sale price, despite having an independent appraisal valuing the property at $1,172,000, effectively making a gift of $472,000 to the town. More importantly, as documented in the July 2012 Town Board meeting minutes, Mrs. Woodruff's explicit intention was for this building to house the Highlands Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center. The board unanimously approved this donation with the understanding that a 15-year triple net lease would be developed. In November of 2012, the board formalized this as a 10-year triple net lease of $1 per year, which expired in November of 2022. The proposed change to a shorter lease term with a $40,000 annual rent represents a significant departure from the donor's original intentions. Jane Woodruff and the Lards gave generously with the specific purpose of providing a permanent home for the Highlands Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center, as reflected in both their actions and the town's own meeting minutes. Implementing a substantial rent increase could be seen as inconsistent with the spirit of these gifts. The donors' combined contribution of $1,172,000 was made with clear intentions that should continue to be honored. Since taking possession of the building in 2012, the Highlands Chamber of Commerce and Visit Highlands NC have invested $488,481.01 in renovations, repairs, and maintenance of the property. The substantial investment demonstrates our commitment to being excellent stewards of this community asset and maintaining it to its highest standards. Under the triple net lease arrangement, we have assumed full responsibility for the building's upkeep, saving the town considerable expense over the past decade. Beyond maintaining the property, Visit Highlands NC has provided substantial monetary support to the town of Highlands. Looking back only to 2021, our contributions include $84,523 in 2021, $89,631 in 2022, $172,370.26 in 2023, $147,870.14 in 2024, and $187,825 in 2025. What's included in those numbers are the annual 4th of July fireworks display, Christmas lights on Main Street and the Founders Park, hanging flower baskets in downtown, pressure washing of town-owned trash receptacles, repairing posts and installing lights on town entrance signs, town wayfinding signage, landscaping and stage maintenance at Founders Park, renovation of the dog park, replacement of holiday wreaths for the downtown area, contributions for the new playground at the Highlands Rec Center, stage heaters and upgraded power supply at Founders Park, and a new 3-phase disconnect at the town ice rink. These investments total over $682,000 in the past 5 years alone, or an average of over $136,443 per year, all directly benefiting the town budget. I do not recall that the Chamber of Commerce and Visit Highlands NC has ever turned down a request from the town of Highlands to provide funding for something that is permitted within the guidelines for which the money can be used. The Chamber and Visit Highlands NC deliver substantial economic value to the town that far exceeds any potential rental income. Our visitor center serves as the first point of contact for thousands of visitors annually, directing them to local businesses, accommodations, and attractions. We actively promote local businesses and help maintain Highlands' reputation as a premier mountain destination. As evidenced by our financial contributions, we organize and support numerous events throughout the year that draw visitors, generating tax revenue and business income. Our marketing efforts extend Highlands' reach to potential visitors and new residents across the region. While we understand the town's need to evaluate all assets and revenue sources, the Highlands Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center represents a special case due to its donated status and intended purpose. This building was never acquired as a revenue-generating asset for the town, but was specifically gifted to house the Highlands Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center. At this time, I'd like to read into the record 2 statements from individuals directly involved in the original transaction when the property was donated to the town. The first is from David Wilkes, who sent me an email today. He states, I had known Jane Woodruff for over 40 years. Throughout the years, Jane was known for her dedication and generosity to the community. We often discussed several projects she was interested in, 2 of which were the new post office and the Chamber/Welcome Center building. When her idea for a welcome center first came up, she asked if I knew who owned the building. I told her Gus and Jan Lard were the owners. Subsequently, she asked if I could find out if they were interested in selling the property without mentioning her. I contacted Gus, and although he was not anxious to sell, he would be open to a discussion. I facilitated the introduction between Jane and Gus, and that was the extent of my participation. I later discovered from Jane that the attorneys involved in the gifting of the property recommended gifting it to the town and leasing it back to the chamber for $1 a year. This would reduce the possibility of problems of transfer in the future if the chamber no longer occupied the building. That is my recollection of events and Jane's intention regarding her gift of this property. The second one is a letter that Gus and Jan Lard sent to the Town of Highlands Board of Commissioners from Gus and Jan Lard regarding the proposed rent on the Highlands Visitor Center and Chamber of Commerce. In May of 2000, we purchased the old Patterson home located at 108 Main Street. In an effort to preserve the character of the historic building and save the established plants and trees while meeting the many demands of the Town of Highlands, we hired local building and landscape architects. This wonderful old home, built on lots 1 and 2 of the original Kelsey plat of the Town of Highlands, was special and worth saving. In the summer of 2012, a well-known and respected local real estate agent approached us and asked us if we would consider selling our building on the corner of Main and First Street. A quote anonymous donor, who we since learned was Jane Woodruff, was offering a monetary gift to the Town of Highlands for the specific intent to buy our property to use as a visitor center. We considered the corner a long-term investment and were not looking to sell. After much consideration, however, we came to agree with Ms. Woodruff that the corner was indeed the perfect location for a visitor center. A special meeting of the Town Board of Commissioners was called by then Mayor David Wilkes on July 31st, 2012, to discuss Ms. Woodruff's proposal. All commissioners voted in favor of accepting the monetary gift with the specific intent of buying our building for the new location of the Highlands Visitor Center and Chamber of Commerce. The property at 108 Main Street cost the Town of Highlands nothing to acquire and nothing to maintain. All improvements, maintenance, and operating expenses are paid for by the Visitor Center and the Chamber of Commerce. We are disappointed to learn the subject of charging rent to the Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center is again on the agenda. The spirit and intent of Ms. Woodruff's gift, which the Board of Commissioners accepted, was to give the building to the Town of Highlands for the Visitor Center and Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Woodruff's wishes can be corroborated by former Mayor Wilkes and the agent who represented her. We are not attempting to argue the legality of how the Town of Highlands can use this property, but we know what Ms. Woodruff expected when she gave her gift. In our opinion, it is an insult to the spirit and memory of Jane Woodruff, a person who did so much for our community during her lifetime, for the Town Board of Commissioners to ignore the intent of her generosity. Based on these considerations, we are now respectfully requesting renewal of our triple net lease at $1 per year for another 10-year term, recognition of the original intent of the donors, acknowledgement of the significant financial contributions and economic value the Chamber and Visitor Center provide to the town, and consideration of our substantial investment in building maintenance and improvements. The partnership between the Town of Highlands and the Chamber of Commerce has created tremendous value for our community. The generous donations by Jane Woodruff and the Lards were made with a specific intention that deserves to be honored. The Highlands Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center serves as a vital economic driver and community hub for our town, while our organization contributes substantially to maintaining Highlands' character, appeal, and vitality. Maintaining the current lease arrangement allows us to maximize our service to the community while respecting the donor wishes. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Let me respond. First of all, I appreciate what the chamber does, appreciate what the visitor center does, but the room tax dollars make those things possible. But we started out with a very modest request. Take over the bathrooms because that is something that tourists use on Main Street. And we were told, nope, can't do it because the attorney says the Senate Bill 948 that was passed by the General Assembly in 1985, I've got it right here, says, oh, we can't do that because it's not, in the bill. It's only the promotion of tourism. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, now, you can't support the bathrooms on Main Street, but you can redo the dog park. I don't know how that money was appropriated, but you can do that. You can do these other things, but the bill clearly says that it's only for the promotion of tourism. Now, other counties that were on that bill, and there were 7 of them, and the city of Durham, there was Graham, Clay, Jackson, Durham, Macon, Polk, and Transylvania have changed their legislation. They're no longer under this legislation. They made modifications, the state did back in 97 and then since then. 4 of those counties have changed. Macon County has not. Yet we get told, oh, you can't, we can only do this or we can do that and then proceed to go on. I would be perfectly happy to give you a rent-free lease. And I've talked to the commissioners some of the commissioners on the county side, and everybody says, oh, you can't talk to them because they'll take the money away. I don't believe that. We're the tourist hub of this county. They get sales tax, they get benefit too. It's a simple matter of changing the legislation. Then the county attorney would say, yes, that's no problem, because it would be a tourist-related expenditure. So I'm willing to do that if the county was willing to make that change, and I think they will, and I'm willing to go ask them to do it. But it's time to have some consistency on what can be done and what can't be done, and not just us being told, you can't do that, we can't do this, we can't do that. This is the legislation that y'all work on.
Well, with what I just heard, I never heard one time that we can't do something. Let me just say that.
They told us we couldn't,
Okay.
they couldn't
Okay,
spend
sorry,
money on that
I'm sorry, I
bathroom.
did not interrupt you, please. What I will say though is, I mean, the post office was given to the town property. Post office, they now have it. If it ceases to be a post office, town gets it back, right?
Correct.
Why don't we do the same thing? Why can't we just give them that property? And then if it ceases to be a visitor center, chamber of commerce, we get it back. The spirit of this is we want $40,000 from them. We're getting $130,000 a year from them. That would be taxpayer dollars, or we just wouldn't do it. When we talk about specific items like the dog park, which needed to be done, that was $40,000 in that range.
It was
I just-
$43,000.
I mean, I
fine.
wasn't sitting
Good.
here when this happened in 2012. I was sitting out there in 2012, and I remember it happened because I had done the original renovation when it became Nick's. So I'm familiar with the building. I worked with Gus and Jan. We talked about it, et cetera. What I'm saying right now, though, is why not in the spirit of what Jane has done for this community? I think that the discussion about changing the legislative aspect is almost 2 subjects, because I think the chamber still wants to be a part of the town and do what they've been doing, whether it's 100,000 a year, 180,000 a year, it depends on the year and the projects, et cetera. But as far as the building goes, I would be inclined, and might not have any support for this, but that they get the building. I mean, we take it off our rolls. We don't have any liability for it. We don't have to pay taxes on it anymore. Not taxes, but insurance on it anymore. It's off our rolls. Just let them have it. I mean, why not? I mean, it's a nonprofit. Then we can still talk about this. This is something,
Changing the legislation.
but that's fine.
Yeah.
We can talk about that, but I think in this subject, I'd rather just give them the building or the 10-year $1 lease and move this forward. We can talk about this, but I think that's 2 different subjects personally. And I mean, I don't see us signing a 1-year lease, you bait and switch, and now all of a sudden they give the town 0. I don't see it happening. So in reality, if it's averaging 130, we're asking them for $170,000 for a building, if we're really looking at it that way.
If I may, we have never, every time you've come to us and asked us for money for whatever it is, the playground, the dog park, it doesn't matter, pick a subject. We have never one time refused a project that fit into what the money could be used for.
I hear
Never.
that.
And all we're asking is to not be tied to that specific number every year in, exchange for a lease. Like, I don't understand why we're still having this conversation. We've never refused money.
You did
Never.
refuse to cover
No.
the room for the bathrooms.
No, we refused to do
Because
that
the lawyer
because.
said you
no,
can't
because
because
we-
of this legislation. It's real simple.
And that's what
And
she
we've
just
asked,
said,
we asked
anything that fits.
16 different ways to give money. If you just come to us every year and say, we need money for this, we need money for that, we've never refused
And I'm
it.
saying change the legislation.
That's
We
not
don't
our
have to have
job.
that.
That's
Changing the
You can
legislation
get
is not our
behind it,
job.
and I can get behind it, and we can ask the county.
That's not our job.
And I will say this, I've heard from the chamber director there years, oh, we can't do this. We can't fund certain things because it's promotion of tourism, i.e. the bathrooms. And if you change the legislation, it's no problem.
We
And
funded
what you're doing now doesn't match up with-
$682,000
and
over
what
the last
you- Some of
5
the things you
years.
do now does not match up with this legislation. I'll
What's,
just tell you.
we have nothing to do with the legislation, Mayor.
But you
That's not our
operate
thing.
under, you operate
Of course
under the
we operate under the
legislation,
legislation.
and
We
the
have
decisions
to.
you make should comport with this legislation, the
And they
promotion of
do.
tourism.
So, but the way I understood it is you were willing to pay for the bathrooms. You just didn't want it contractually tied in a lease.
We were
No.
willing to pay
Am I
for the
correct, or
bathrooms
is that
until the
wrong?
attorney told us we couldn't. We're
There
not
you go.
attorneys.
Okay.
And
I
he
don't know
said
that.
it because of this legislation.
All you had to do,
Change it.
because that's what the attorney told us. I'm not an attorney. Kay's not an attorney. We have to go by what the attorney says and operate within the confines of the existing legislation. The legislation is not our fault. We weren't here in
I
1985.
understand that, but you should abide by it.
We're abiding by it. When the
On some
attorney,
things, the dog park, you going and fixing that, I don't see where that's in the promotion of
Because-
tourism.
We
How did y'all make that
we
decision?
promote that as an asset to the town.
But it should be tourist promotion. Well, I know we're splitting hairs here, but this is an issue, and you wouldn't
And
do
we
the
said-
you would
we-
not do the bathrooms, but you then go and say, well, we can do the dog park. How does that come about?
I really think we're missing the whole point here. The point is that when you ask us for projects that make sense for the legislation, we always give the money, as evidenced by the $682,000 we've given over the last 5 years. We have never
You
refused.
allocated the tax dollars to it. You've been the agents that have allocated the 1.2 million that you got in the last few years or 3. You've allocated that money to those projects. You
Because-
haven't, the chamber has not given them. You've been an agent to decide how that money is spent.
Just like we are.
Yes.
I mean, that's just how they choose to allocate it. So, I mean, I'm strongly in favor of giving them the building, getting this out of the picture. But part of the caveat would be very simple, is we get a yearly reporting of everything. I mean,
Absolutely.
detailed accounting.
That's
Okay,
not a problem.
Your proposal has merit.
No, I just think that all it does is causes friction in a case where we don't need friction. That's just my opinion. It may get flat on its face, but I'm going to make that motion.
I think you need to
Let us,
be aware that there may
could you let
be,
us discuss first?
Well, I was trying to get to the point of discussion, but okay.
I think there is some restrictions on a public asset being able to be given away.
Well, certainly it would be pending legal. Well,
I mean,
The
Nick may-
the
Okay,
asset
we'll
was
sell it
given
to
to
you for
the
$10.
post office.
I mean, I'm sure it has to
we
be.
never had anything to do with the post.
How did that work on the post office?
The town of Highlands deeded it to the post office. I have the deed.
Because the town owned it, and then, but if it ceases to be a
Mayor
post office.
Wilkes
it comes
and
back.
Bob Fry
But-
signed the deed on
but
behalf of
that's-
the town.
That's government to government. Those are still public entities.
You still gave the property away.
To a public, another pub that serves the public.
Well, we'd have to find out the legality
Yeah.
of it, but I'm just more,
I think we don't need to make any decisions tonight. I think we need to discuss it.
okay, well,
Figure out how to make it work.
unfortunately, Brian's not here, but, he is.
So what's the pleasure of the board? That we'll just discuss that possibility of turning over the property to the chamber and visitors.
I'd like to at least understand the legal aspects of it.
I think we need to understand it right
Yeah.
before we can even
Yeah,
decide
well, I
whether
mean,
we should or
obviously,
shouldn't.
my motion would have been to make sure it's possible, but that's what I would
Let me ask our,
propose.
Nick Costa, our town attorney, would you like to weigh in on this, Nick?
Sure. So there is statutory, can you all hear me okay?
Yes,
Sure. So there is statutory authority for conveying property for a public purpose. That's the requirement, is that it has to be conveyed for a public purpose, and then it can be by private conveyance or private sale. It has to meet the requirements of the statute that provides for that. But it does provide that there has to be a reversionary interest such that should it cease being used for a public purpose, the property would revert back to the town. So that is something that's contemplated under statute.
Okay.
And for the record, the deed from the town to the post office has that clause. If it ceases to
Yeah,
be a
it
post
reverts.
office,
It
it
reverts.
reverts.
Right, because it's a public purpose. That's why it's simple.
So I guess we could ask Nick to, research and develop a way of doing this.
I think you need to, first, we need to know, I don't think there's any question that the visitor center is a public purpose. I think the problem is the chamber a public purpose? Because it is not a 501c3, it is 501c6.
Yes.
Okay, which means that it serves its members, not the public. And because of that, I think there is a legal question as to how, if that can actually be, I mean, we talked about it before, Tricia, we were talking about giving it to the visitor center and y'all subleasing it to the chamber, and you said that wouldn't work legally, so that's what we're trying to figure out.
Are we at least in agreement to let Nick advise us to the next meeting?
Yeah, I don't think we've made any decisions
No,
yet,
no, I'm
because
not- just to
obviously
see
I
if
have to
it's
think
feasible.
about it, because we are completely changed course here.
Right.
But I think those are some of the legal things we have to talk about, which is actually what you and I talked about a year or more ago, is how we can make that thing be legal, because you are not a 501c3, which is a public charity. You are a member charity, or a member, or whatever it's called, nonprofit. And that is different.
So, well,
Okay,
Great.
so we will have our attorney
Nick, look into it.
develop that.
And Mayor, we can have a follow-up discussion about the legislation. I have had a meeting
I look forward to it.
with the Franklin Chamber, which we discussed the last time we talked about this.
Okay.
So we can have a catch up on that.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Our next item would be the Winship Partners LLLP subdivision plat review. Michael Mathis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it's been a while since we last went over this. I'll just go back over the memo. An application was submitted to the planning department by Winship Partners LLLP concerning a property subdivision at 651 Holt Circle. According to a survey by Aaron Garrett Land Surveying PC, the subject property is 5.42 acres. Town of Highlands zoning map indicates the parcel is zoned R1 residential and is in the critical area of the town's water supply watershed 3. According to the Unified Development Ordinance, Section 8.2.1 dimensional standards, the minimum lot size for a property in this zoning and watershed district is 1 acre. According to the preliminary and final plat, the applicant proposes to subdivide the parcel into 2 lots. One would be 1.57 acres and the other would be 3.85 acres. The applicant has received septic approval from Macon County Environmental Health for the 3.85 acres. Also, since we last met, the applicant has hired Mountain Septic and Grading to locate the existing septic distribution box and drain field on the 1.57 acre lot. The applicant's attorney, AJ Braswell, has confirmed that all existing septic is located on the 1.57 acre parcel. And then Macon County Environmental Health has been back out to the site. They've inspected it and located a future repair area on the 1.57 acre parcel. And I've been there to see that as well and confirm it was on that. The 1.57 acre lot is connected to town water and electricity. The 3.85 acre lot has access to town water and electricity. And then again, the planning board reviewed this request at their October meeting, and their recommendation is to approve the preliminary and final plat. And the staff recommendation is to approve the preliminary and final plat as submitted.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Mathis? I believe the follow-up is that the county has looked at this issue. Everybody now has a drain field, septic lot field and a repair area.
Yeah,
On
and
both
we had actually knew that the septic was on site. They just had to find the drain field,
Okay.
and that's what they needed to confirm.
All right.
And the repair area, of course, by the county.
I move we approve the subdivision.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your hands, saying aye. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
the only, on this subject, the only thing I would ask is that we kind of make a checklist and from moving forward, we do this all. We require this on every property. Yeah. Just so that we're consistent.
Absolutely.
So.
Very good. Okay, the next item is Mountaintop Arts and Crafts Sip and Stroll Proposal. Jim Spencer. And before they come forward, I will follow item number 3, statement of conflict of interest. I don't know if it's a conflict of interest, but I do participate in the arts and crafts shows, but I do not have a vote. So
Well, thank you for having us, and
Okay.
I'm going to let Kath present it because she did the slides.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I'm Kath Connolly Hudson. I'm president of Mountaintop Rotary. And thank you for the opportunity for letting us come here this evening. We would like to ask for an addition to our Mountaintop Art and Craft Show, and that is the addition of having some food and beverages, alcohol, as a part of the event. So I would like to begin with just giving you some context of the show and to then go into the details, the logistics about how we envision this might happen. So if we, that's good. So just some background. Mountaintop Rotary took on the management of the Mountaintop Art and Craft Show in 2023. Prior to that, it was a grassroots, wonderful show that has grown over the years, and this is the 20th year of that show. And I think that we have proved in the last couple years our ability to professionally manage and create a very safe and wonderful experience for our community. It's a fundraiser. And it's our biggest fundraiser of the year. We do this twice. We do it the last weekend of June and the last of August. Each year we choose some organization to promote the and to fundraise for. So last year, all of the funds went to the Boys and Girls Club to help bring them here and their programming to Highlands. This year, everything we are supporting is the PAC Youth Theater. So as you probably know, if you've been to the show, we don't charge admission. We do have entrances, but it is free for anyone to come in. So a big piece of fundraising, as we all know, is you can make a lot more money fundraising if you sell alcohol. And we don't want to sell alcohol all weekend. This would be a restricted, I mean, that's just, okay, I see people laughing, but it's like, that's a common thing, right? We all know that. That's how you make money. So let's go to the next one. We would, let's see. Well, that's fine. So we wanted to introduce something that we're calling Sip and Stroll. This is a very limited part of the park, and where we would have a couple of vendors selling beer and wine and small bites of food. This, we actually really like the model that the fundraiser, the Shrimp Boil, uses for the Founders Park fundraiser. You sell a ticket and you redeem the ticket and you have a drink and food. So it's not, the event is not ticketed in the sense that it, shuts anybody out. Anyone is welcome to buy a ticket for some sort of beverage and food.
And in the meantime, the show itself, the arts and crafts vendors are wide open. Anyone can walk in and attend that.
Yeah, so it doesn't, put up any gates. So if we go to the next slide. No, I think we're missing one. Which is why when technology is not working, you have handouts. So this is actually the most important one because this has the map of what we're envisioning. The light's not showing. So what you're looking at is a map of the park, and the stars that you see are the entrances as they exist today. We have an entrance on Fifth Street, one on Fourth, and one up there on the, where the ice skating rink is. What we would like to propose and to ask is that on the part of Pine Street, just right there where the Fourth Street entrance is, we rope off a section. We've measured it 55 feet, and it could come all the way across the street or leave a section open. And that is where the vendors would be. We have, we're proposing that this is just a small part of the time. So the show goes all day, Saturday and Sunday. We're proposing Saturday only from 3 to 6 p.m. We are working with a couple of local vendors, the High Country Wine and the New Western Carolina Brewery. And they will have the North Carolina permits to be able to vend the alcohol. They will also have the small bites of food. So at the entrances.
That said,
Yeah.
we are getting we've applied for our ABC license because we understand these two vendors may or may not have the site privileges, even though they have license to serve. So we have applied, and we're still waiting to hear back for our own license for just this one-time event.
As a nonprofit, you can apply for a single event, which we have done. We also have checked that we have, Rotary has the appropriate liability insurance that covers alcohol at events. We've also spoken with Chief Holland to talk about hiring off-duty police officers so that they would be on premise. At the entrances where the stars are, this is kind of where people come and go, we would have the appropriate signs that say, no alcohol beyond this point. We would have people at every entrance
To make sure that.
to monitor that. So we tried to go through all of the logistical things that people might have any concerns about. We would sell the tickets there, and you would have to have a ticket to go and get the food, and then you would be allowed to just walk around and hopefully buy more things. So, you know, as I'm saying, it's, for us, we feel like this would really help in our fundraising. And as you know, the funds go right back to the community. So 100% of everything that we raise at the event goes into our charity, community, and grants program. We raise for that specific cause, but then, as you know, many of our nonprofits here in town have benefited from the show. And it is, as I say, it's 100% managed and manned with Rotary volunteers, except for the actual vendors with the food and the beverages.
Any questions?
Can I ask the question, not as the mayor, but as an artist? Will you comp the artist a beer and an hors d'oeuvre? You know, we work hard, and we're gonna have to go till 6 o'clock now
We
instead
can,
of
we can
5.
look at something like that. We'll
We
see.
can look at something special. Yes, and this year for the art and craft show, you know, in our ongoing, you know, each year we've added something to the show to really make it special. And we're adding a special juried show this year. So that, you know, we can keep and maintain this level of the artists who come there. So it you know, will never become sort of a flea market thing. We just keep elevating it.
And you're planning on giving awards?
Yes, we are doing awards this year, and we'll do that during this Sip and
On the
Stroll.
stage during that.
Right, and we'll also have live entertainment. Our favorites, Nitro Grass, will be back.
Okay.
And then also the youth theater are actually going to do something from Matilda. That will be fun. Yeah. So that is our request.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. What's your reasoning for closing off? The way I am envisioning this, the way I understand you're saying it, this would be, you would sell the tickets somewhere,
So we will be
Yeah.
selling tickets,
right?
basically, from about noon on at all the entrances.
Okay,
You know, it's free to come in, but if you'd like to enjoy, get a beverage, buy the ticket.
okay.
So people still can come and go.
But you can only get the beverage between 3 and 6.
That's correct,
Yes.
in that
So you
little
gotta
green
come-
rectangle area.
So,
Yeah, we need to have a space because if you've been to the show, you'll see it is 10 to 10. We have used the capacity of that park for the event. So that's why we would move this, a few tents into that Pine Street, kind of across from CK Swan, that little strip. Because we don't have much space. I mean, we could find a place maybe near the stage, but it's a little crowded. So we would just have a few tents that these vendors could be at. So that's really the only difference. It's not closed off. The entire event is closed with those entrances, and anyone can come in without charge.
So the purpose of at those entrances during the sip and stroll is to make sure alcohol does not leave the park. Did that answer your question?
It's kind of like just
Okay.
having a separate space, like at the Shrimp Boil, you have that tent.
Okay.
And everyone knows you have your ticket and you go into that tent,
Right.
and that's where you get your food and alcohol. So we would just create that space. We couldn't use the patio because we have vendors there.
Do you have chairs? I mean, someplace to sit?
We have chairs, in addition to the regular park benches, but no, the idea was we're trying to encourage them to wander and.
Still wander while their food.
Yeah, the stroll part.
Yeah, because we're just talking about little small bites, like a
Not a
soft
meal.
pretzel. Yeah, it's not a sit-down meal, so there won't be that. The idea is that in the couple years that we have done this, countless people ask us, well, where do I get a beer? I mean, just like, because you assume you're coming to this sort of festival thing, and it's typical of many of these types of events.
Even some vendors have asked us.
It's true.
None present, of course.
Anything else?
Over the years, we have, I'm just throwing this out just for discussion maybe. We have not allowed and or discouraged food trucks.
Correct.
And this seems to be a variation on a food truck for the most part.
No more, no less than some of the events that are in there, like the shrimp boil. But yes, I mean.
Yeah,
it
but the
could look
shrimp,
that
the
way.
shrimp boil is specifically raising money for the park itself.
Okay,
I think the only reason you think it's a food truck is it's on the pavement part. It's on the car.
Well, no, they're bringing in folks to provide.
Local folks.
It's just
It
our
doesn't matter
local,
whether, it doesn't matter whether they're traveling a half a mile or 500.
Well, they
Far as I'm
serve
concerned.
beer at the Twilight
sorry?
5K. At the Twilight 5K,
Ugly Dog is there.
yeah, they have a tent there. but-
Yeah, the Ugly Dog has a tent for the 5K.
And then
Um,
there's
food and wine.
But yeah,
Okay.
we don't hold
Well,
ourselves to them.
No, but we're talking a little bit of apples and oranges. So food and wine, park's completely closed
Yeah.
and alcohol is included in the purchase of your ticket. The same thing for the fundraiser with the shrimp boil. It's included in your price. If you want to drink, you can have it. If you don't want it, you can, but technically you don't leave with it. The only reason you can leave with it because it's on a Saturday night that happens to have music in the park. Otherwise, it would have to stay under the tent. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against this. What I'm saying is, this would be the first time that I can think of, like even in the 5K, if you're over 21, you get a bib and it has a little pull tab on your and you can have a beer if you want it. There's no charge, there's no nothing, you just get a beer as part of being in the event. So this would be the first time, and again, I'm not opposed to it, but it'd be the first time that we've ever had where you can go buy a ticket and get a drink. You're basically buying a drink.
Well, even
Or food.
But when you
after the
run,
free
you
beer,
pay
you can go buy,
entry,
buy
yeah.
them a beer.
Mm-mm. Can't buy any.
You know?
They're not allowed to sell it.
I
Mm-mm.
was thinking good.
Doesn't mean people haven't gotten a second one, but I'm just saying, you're not allowed to sell it.
By entering the race in a way.
And you're over 21, you get a
But,
ticket.
yeah.
But yeah, there's no, I mean, there's a charge, yes, but what I'm saying is we're not doing it by the drink. And this one, you can go buy 1 ticket, 2 ticket, 3 tickets. I'm just saying it's the first time we've ever done it that I can think of in that context. Again, I'm not against it. I'm just saying we just need to be, because we've been talking about what that means for, in the future. Like we want to talk about how does the park, how do we handle that in the park? What is the precedent? What are we going to allow? What are we not going to allow? I mean, I know this is a fundraiser. This is, the Mountaintop Rotary. I mean, I'm in the other Rotary Club, have been forever, and I'm for this. We just need to make sure we dot our i's.
Where
to
we
make-
come before is, it's been proposed where it was like they were trying to block it off and not allow.
Yeah.
And where they're still
Right.
letting
Right.
people in. and-
Yeah.
Right.
and
Anybody can
Anybody
come
can come in and, Ramon, if you want to get a beer or something, you buy your ticket. If you don't have
Right.
to.
As long as
So
that's the
kind of a-
precedent. I just don't want it starting to happen where we're getting all these people coming in and every event we have in the park, all of a sudden,
Right.
we're selling alcohol, we're selling food, we're selling.
And I think that's part of the thought process as far as the town is concerned, or has been in the last year or so, is things like food and wine. And are we going to continue to go down that road
Yeah, well,
with blocking off the park?
yeah,
I think we said no,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
but this doesn't block the park.
No, I understand that,
right.
but
Well,
it's just a little bit different concept,
Yeah.
like Jeff says.
Yeah, and
And I think we are setting a precedent, so to speak, even though we don't.
it's still at our discretion, but,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I know the subject came up. I'm in favor of food and wine. It's a good event. I don't want to have 3 of them. I think one time a year, we're good, move on. But I'm in favor of this. I just want to make sure that I like the fact that it's open to everybody and that's the whole intent. And I would love to be able to go. I will tell you, I think sales will go up.
Yeah.
Sales will go up. I have a couple of beers, I'm buying something.
All right.
I'm sorry, it's just the way it works. But I mean, I'm for it. I actually am in favor of allowing it and we'll see how it goes. I mean,
I'll ask Nick, do you have any comments or want to say anything about this?
Nope. I do not.
that's the best legal
That's
answer
why you're
ever.
here, Nick. Okay.
Actually don't think it's a whole lot different than having somebody selling something out of their tent.
No, I don't disagree. I'm just saying it's the first time we've ever done this.
Just because it's food,
I-
it's different.
Well,
Well,
I understand.
and-
It's
and
the
they-
alcohol part. I don't care about the food.
All
Yeah.
during the show, there are snow cone vendors, people selling,
Yeah,
food.
farmer's market
Try to
sells food
stop
all
it,
the
it's
time.
cheese straws, pick it up.
And farmers market.
Yeah, farmer's market has prepared food. I mean, in some
Yeah,
fashion or
and the
another.
farmer's market is usually stays there throughout the whole day. So some of those vendors just stay
Right.
as a part of, so there's food, there's no food trucks, but we've got the famous cheese straw lady. It's been coming there for 20 years. I mean, people would have a fit if she didn't show
And
up.
I realize you're gonna have to have the off-duty police officers.
Yes.
Chief, do you have any comments on this?
I do not. I was just asking Kay to make sure that that is one of the nights that they music in the park. So they're not out there drinking for hours and hours and hours.
No, there's no music.
But I think
3 to
we should
6 and then
talk-
music
I mean,
starts.
Lester's management over that park. Maybe we get your opinion.
Yeah. No problem.
Okay.
So we're talking 3 to 6 on those 2 days, just the
No,
Saturday.
One day.
One day.
Saturday in June, Saturday in August.
Right, 2 days,
Yes, yeah,
2 separate days.
yeah. So
I make a
it's 3
motion to
hours.
approve.
Okay, got a motion?
I'll second.
Second, any further discussion?
I have one other question. The vendors, the art vendors, will they be required to be open during this time?
We have been communicating with them over the last couple of years, because this is an idea we've been percolating for a while. It is their option. Most of them have said, as long as I don't have a break in the middle and have to, lock up and then come back and just extend the hour, we would stay open.
We normally, in the past, close at 5 o'clock, so we're
Right.
extending it 1 hour. And if they think they're going to make more sales, you better believe they'll stay. I don't expect people to.
I know in the past you
Yeah.
had not been open this late, and
Right.
my concern would be that the vendors vacate and then you've got people just wandering the park with
No, that's
drinks
why
in their
when,
hand and wondering
yeah,
why we're
we
here.
thought that through. We made sure, I mean, we don't want to close down the park and then try and reopen.
Yeah, the art show is the attraction, hopefully.
Yes, yes, exactly.
We're still trying to keep that. So we,
Can I say something?
Yeah.
else?
yeah,
Yes.
One thing I would ask, if we're gonna start making this precedent, as you mentioned, since Lester's not gonna say anything, I will. I've seen this park after each event that has alcohol, and it's atrocious at the trash that is left for his crew to have to pick up, or my officers to have to clean up so people can drive through this area. So if we're gonna start doing this, like, I ask that you pick up after yourselves, because we're paying for these guys to come out there on Saturday night or Sunday morning or whatever and clean this mess up, because it's not picked up when people leave.
I hope Lester would agree that we are pretty good about cleaning up after us.
Is that right, Lester?
Yeah.
We,
Yeah.
no, we spent,
About when there's alcohol involved.
But we still
forget
have-
to pick up after
but we have a
still
whole
clean up.
volunteer crew who cleans every single, we
On a-
empty the trash cans, we do everything.
On a typical Saturday night, what is the requirement for off-duty officers? 2?
Right now, we're doing one. I think I've spoken to the chamber, July 4th. I did call last week and asked that they hire two.
So on a normal Saturday night, there's only one? No, because
Yeah.
there's always more than one.
We quit doing, two.
Okay, so what's going to be the requirement here?
Long time ago.
Just one? Same thing, required one here?
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, but I'm talking about this event.
I have to see what kind of crowd is, what kind of crowd, because we block off the street on High Street. With cones, barricades, cars, it's
Okay.
blocked off, so, we'll just have to see what. kind
Well,
of-
we're happy to hire as whatever you recommend. So that's
Okay.
not an issue for us. Whatever you feel like makes
Well,
it
I
safe.
defer to you
And it's
personally.
Saturday nights is one officer and it's completely wide open.
It's wide open though,
Other
you
than
can
those
see.
two strips, so we do
Can't
try
see
to
at this event.
catch it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
And we
we
do
have a
have
motion on
radios
the,
with our staff, so if anything is
Yeah.
noticed, we can radio and help get that person
Understand.
out.
we have a motion on the floor and a second. We've had our questions now. I'm gonna call, okay, you have another question?
Should we think about potentially a cleanup deposit
Um,
for this event and all events?
Let-
I
let
think
me
we should
weigh
be
in on
following
this.
this event, not necessarily them, because they've had a track record of doing a great job.
Yeah, let me
But I agree.
weigh in as a vendor. On Sunday, everybody gets out of there. These people have a cadre of volunteers who are worn out, but they go through and vacuum up. It's about the cleanest event we have in that park.
Thank you.
From there.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
I'm not saying these folks are gonna be
Right.
culprits. I'm just saying, as we do this.
That's a good
Should we
point.
think about?
But the
that?
true part of this one is you have alcohol on Saturday and then they're open all day Sunday, so it's gonna, I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
they got a day of.
Yeah.
Okay, we can look at that possibility.
Yeah.
But we got a motion on the floor. I'm gonna call for a vote. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. We'll see you June 28th, 29th.
Right. The next item, number 13, is the South Fourth Street parking change. Josh Ward.
So at the retreat, we discussed the safety issues with angled parking on South Fourth. You see in your packet, the aerial was a little dated. And so I had Carlton, our GIS mapper, go back out and told the number of parking places there now. There's 16 total parking spaces. As you can see, there's no parking down at the alley right there because that one parking space encroached too far into the alley entrance or exit there. And also you have a driveway entrance to the home there on the corner of Spring in South Fourth. I don't know how much that's used. It appears that they're using the driveway off of Spring. It may be something that we could ask to see if we could actually use that as parking. But if that stays, you're looking at going from 16 parking spaces down to 8 if you do parallel parking. Also, I did discuss with the DOT parking up in the turn there where the asphalt was out of the lane that we had marked for parking. There's a strip there where about 3 cars could pull over, but you've got grass on one side. It doesn't really have any ADA access to any public sidewalks. The DOT did not want to see that in that area. So that's not an option. So that's where we're at.
I think Jeff
So,
can tell us a little.
I mean, I will tell you this, I will never want to see a single parking place go away. But what I will tell you, I did go out there with my roller wheel and I'll just give you some dimensions. The parallel parking across the street is 8 feet wide, which is what's required. The travel lanes from the end of the painted spot is then 12 feet to the middle of the double yellow. And then it's 12 feet to the end of the angled parking. The angled parking is on a 45. If we were building a parking lot using architectural design standards or our own ordinance, 45-degree angle parking requires from curb to end of space of 17 feet. Those particular spaces are 12. So, I mean, it's 5 feet short. I personally never park there because my truck is too big. The trucks that do park there, I know there's been a lot of pictures. Everybody's seen it with the right front tire and the whole front of the car blocking the sidewalk because they're up on it. Again, I don't want to lose a single parking place, but there's a safety concern that was brought up. I know DOT is in favor of it. And it's just, I know we have some owners on that
Mr.
street.
Cochran is here tonight. If
Mr.
you'd like to
Cochran
make a
and
comment.
Jeannie's here.
Yeah.
So any thoughts?
I'll let Stan.
Would y'all come up to, yeah.
Come on, Stan, over here.
I think it's a terrible idea to do this. I absolutely, most of our customers, I hate parallel parking. That's problematic in itself. I many times will drive in Franklin or whatever, and there's a parallel parking. Do I really want to go there? And I just go on back. The other problem you have with parallel parking is little old ladies are going to park there and they're going to get out on the driver's side. And with the traffic coming up, there's dangers of accidents, that'll occur. I mean, that's the other side of the thing. I have noted that there's several cities, Oakland, Burlington, Vermont, Lincoln, Nebraska, and Huntsville, Texas, did studies on this, and they all they thought that they would go into a town and change the diagonal parking to parallel parking, and they found out that it was a bad idea. In Lincoln, Nebraska actually did a study on that, and they found that each parking space was worth $20,000 a year for merchants. And I'm seeing 8 of them at least disappearing. And that's going to that's going to be a lot of money right there. And I'd hate to see that occur. I also know that if you diagonally park, when you open the door, at least the person is not worried about getting run over. If you parallel park and the little lady opens her door it's the way that people come up on that street, you know, it's very problematic that they're going to get hit. Now, I know there's some curb issues there, and I think that when they repaved South Fourth Street, they didn't go down deep enough, and the curb is almost flush with the road. Now, that could certainly be corrected by putting on tops on the curb that would, you know, make it safer for a car pulling in.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I measured it today, but I didn't bring this up. So I know you're looking at me. The concern I have is when you drive up through there, you have behind a full-size vehicle, and cars have gotten bigger. They just have, and right or wrong, there's about 5 to 6 feet to the double yellow. So it's the only reason I measured it today. I wanted to see how extensive it was. I honestly was not hoping, I was hoping it was going to be much less. Today's the first day, or not today, because we've got it Monday, but this is the first time we've seen it to say that we're losing 8 spaces. It was not going to be that many. We were hoping it was more like 5 or 6, which is still important, but it's 8.
Yeah.
We know that now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's still discussion to be had, but it's been like this a long time.
Oh, yeah, it's been this way forever. But Lamar, from Church Street up to Spring Street, can that yellow line be moved? Because you have a lot of space
Yeah,
between.
it's not in the center. It's,
I know,
it's,
that's what I'm
right,
saying.
yes,
Because
yes.
on the other
Went
side,
out
there's
there
a lot
with
of-
the measuring
Yes.
tape.
Yes.
And that yellow line needs shifted over to give another couple.
It's-
Yeah.
It's not,
Is
I
that
mean,
state or, I'm sure it's state, but I mean.
That is a DOT answer.
Right.
That's kind of, can't be moved, sure,
Yeah.
but will they do it? That I don't know.
Right, but I'm just saying there's the traffic way on the parallel parking side of the street has a lot
the
more
map went away.
width there than as far as the
The
others.
trouble is, I don't know that we can actually meet our own criteria.
Right, I don't think we can either, so, but it's just,
So
But I'm just saying.
currently the parallels are 8. The driving lanes are actually 12 each.
Right.
To center of double and then 12. So what I'm saying is if it can move, if it can be 10 and 10, I don't know that. I mean, we have other roads that are 10 and 10.
yeah,
But then you're
Our own
offsetting
roads
it.
are only 18.
yeah,
I think you're offsetting it though.
yeah.
Well, I understand that. It's still a problem for big, I mean, like, I don't park
But I mean,
there. I
if they
specifically
shift
don't.
it over for, it just allows more leeway for people traveling up north.
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
So that are in the diagonal parking.
Yeah,
So
if a
that-
regular car's parked there, you and I
Oh, yeah.
cannot not touch the double yellow.
No.
That's impossible.
So,
But,
Jeff, in your measurements,
and that was at the narrowest section because it's not consistent.
fresh measurements,
Problem.
the width of a parallel spot is how wide?
It varies depending
No,
on the
I mean,
angle.
excuse me, not your measurements. What's the standard width for a parallel spot?
You mean 8 feet by, ours is 22.6. It's 8 feet.
8 feet wide,
Mhm.
okay? What's the width of the existing parallel?
The existing parallel on the other side?
From the end of the parking space back to where the line that demarcates.
You're talking about from your hood to your trunk? Or are you talking about from curb out
From the curb out.
On
The
a
line
par-
is marked,
on a parallel spot?
yes.
8 feet. Those are actually marked at 8.5, by the way.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's
On the parallel.
So
on the parallel.
there's technically only room for a parallel spot?
no, there's
I'm-
more than enough room. There's more than a parallel. But
Well, but you're saying there's 8 feet. A normal,
correct.
if we were laying this out from ground zero, a
Yeah.
parallel spot would be 8 feet wide and I don't care how long.
Correct.
Okay, and a car is usually 5.5 to 6 feet wide
7 feet wide.
or 7, depending on the size of
Yeah.
it.
Well, most cars are 6.5
Yeah.
to 7.
So, so to their point, which I was trying to dispute, when you open the door in a parallel spot
Mhm.
of 8 feet,
Mhm.
your door is going to actually go outside that parallel spot.
Absolutely.
Oh, sure.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
That number dirt to start with, but anyway.
Well, yeah, Absolutely, it does. Yeah, you
So-
open it into traffic.
That's the way it's always.
Yeah. Not saying that's smart. I'm just saying that's what it is.
Okay, so, but the lines that are marked on the ground, our parallel lines actually only physically extend out 8 feet
Right. And
into
that's assuming that somebody's parking roughly
Next-
12 inches
well,
from the
yeah,
curb.
yeah.
I've seen
They
some
do
4
not.
footers.
So
No,
it's
I know.
6 of one, a half a dozen
I've
of the
seen some
other.
4
at this
footers.
point.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think if we can remark, if it's feasible to remark. And again, it's not the entire stretch. It actually bellies in a little bit. And I hate to say it, it's at your front door
It's
is the
right at my
narrowest
front
section.
door. And
Yeah,
to your point,
that's the narrowest.
yeah, I went out there and the line, maybe they had gone to an art show and had a drink. The line goes this way. It literally bellies
Yeah.
towards the front door. So I went out there with the tape measure. Can you, instead of going ahead and making parallel spots, could we try to get the line moved and see if that helps remedy the situation at all? And
Yeah, we-
also get rid of the
These
telephone
telephone
poles.
poles that have nothing on them
That-
are block, you
I
know,
have-
taking up
The
spaces.
pole right in the middle of my door.
I think it's worth talking to the DOT
Yeah.
about remarking.
I mean,
I don't know what they're gonna.
I know he's not sitting here. Trust me, I begged him and promised him all kinds of things. My husband worked for the DOT in South Carolina for years. And when they first put that line out there, he did bring his measure out and he's like, this is wrong. They should have graded down further on the curb. The curb should have been higher. And I can tell you, because there's this thing on Instagram that shows all the bad parkers. There are tons that park on the sidewalks and they are jerks for doing so. And I try to catch them when they do that. Maybe the solution would be to move the line and those 3 parking spots where it's super narrow, make it a compact car spot. I mean, instead of going, please park your big work truck here with the butt hanging out. But like today, when we were out there looking at the spots, the people that are parking in those parallel spots, half of them take up a spot and a half.
Yeah, they don't
Because they
park
don't
in
look
the
at the
squares.
lines.
Yeah.
That's enough, yeah.
So
Yeah.
what, I mean,
The spots
then
vary
how
a little
many
bit.
do we lose? So,
Seems like if we talk to the DOT.
Yeah.
And see if they'll go along with moving the line. I would love to see some either dedicated, designated compact car parking,
For at least if we need 3 of them or whatever, but
along with all the ones
it's worth
on Main
exploring all
Street
the
that have
options
streets.
before anything drastic. It's been, again, it's been like this since I've lived here, with the
sure.
exception, I think the double yellow moved.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, it
I
did.
mean, there's no question the double yellow
Yeah.
moved, which exacerbated it.
I'll be
Why don't we table this, ask Josh and Lamar to approach
Yeah.
the DOT about the possibility of
To not lose it.
moving that yellow line over and then come back and
I
Go
would
from there.
greatly.
Yeah, I
because
would
can-
appreciate that. That seems like a really sensible way to approach it.
Yeah.
I can
It's got-
tell you, I've been in
Sorry.
business for 9 years here. People thought I wouldn't make it one. I've had to change my business model and I've really had to hustle. And I'm a one-woman show because I can't afford to hire somebody to come in and help me even part-time. And I think losing 8 parking spots in front of my business, we would have yet another empty spot in Highlands. Like there's 3 on Main Street right now because I wouldn't survive. And I represent 25 local artists that are from here in Highlands and they would lose a place to put their art. So I really appreciate y'all
Okay.
tabling it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
okay, thank you.
So Josh, if you'd Lamar will initiate that with DOT. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the Playhouse asbestos report proposal, Josh Ward.
Well, we discussed this prior. Commissioner Weller gave me a number to Alpha Environmental that actually did the reports on the old fire department before it was remodeled into the new ABC store. And I contacted them and they gave a proposal to go into the Playhouse to do an assessment and give us a report back. I did talk to Macon County, and that's the only thing that would be needed is an asbestos report if you decided to demo the building going forward. So the recommendation would be to approve the budget amendment so that we can have Alpha move forward with the report.
From a pricing standpoint, for a building of that size and age, the proposal is very reasonable. I make a motion to approve.
Second. Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you very much. All right, the next item is the planning board appointments. And you received a breakdown of the folks that had applied for the planning board. And we do have that requirement that is exactly the same as the zoning board of adjustment, requiring someone to either live in the town or to be on the planning board, or to live in the township and own a business or property in town. In that case, there were several people that were not eligible for consideration because they didn't meet that criteria. I do think maybe at another point, we might need to revisit that criteria, not for the zoning board, because that's a statutory requirement, but for the planning board. But following the policy we have in place, you have a list of the people who are nominated to be on the planning board. So I'll open it to the floor for any discussions, questions before we call for a vote.
I make a motion to approve the list as presented.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that was what we did. We essentially voted.
Yep.
All right.
Sorry. Is it not just?
I guess, do we have to
You a second?
ratify
We'll
it?
just formally approve them.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of the list of candidates?
Aye.
And opposed? All right. The motion carries then. All right, the next item will be the Mirror Lake dredging project discussion. I know Mike McGill is here tonight to answer any questions on this, and I asked this to be put on the agenda because we did have the engineering report meeting. There are options that are available to pursue this dredging project. So what I would like to do is, first of all, I have kind of a history of the Mirror Lake project that I'd like to go through. I have some memories and experiences that I'd like to share. Then after that, I'll open the floor to anybody in the public who would like to ask questions. I received from Mr. Evans and Mr. Hain and other group a list of questions this afternoon that they wanted answered. There are 25 questions, and I don't think we have the time to answer those tonight. I think some of my remarks will address some of those questions. And also, when we had the engineering report meeting, I think a lot of those questions were also addressed. But let me just go over, my thoughts and comments, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. And then the board will have a discussion about options and how to proceed. First of all, I was just thinking about this. We have really 4 major impoundments in Highlands. I have a photo in my office by Henry Scandon around 1900, and it's a photograph of Ravenel Lake, where, of course, the dam was there, and it still is there. Lake Sequoia was created in 1929, and it was used for power generation for many years, and it was approved, and the dam was built, the town owns it, by a bond referendum. We also had the Highlands Reservoir that I believe was created around that time out at Buck Creek, because it was a part of that bond referendum where the town created a water supply at the time. The concept was, if you have water and electricity, visitors will come to Highlands. Then we have Mirror Lake. It was a dam created, as best we can ascertain, around 1948, 1949. That was a private development, and the town really owns no property on Mirror Lake. We have some other dams and impoundments. The Big Creek has a dam on it that's privately owned. And then Harris Lake doesn't so much have a dam as a spillway. And it was a part of that impoundment group that I refer to. Let me go to Mirror Lake history though. As best I can understand, and my father-in-law, Buck Trop, the former mayor, would talk with me about this back in the 90s and the 80s, because the homeowners association supposedly was formed around the early 1950s as Mirror Lake developed. Buck went back, and I remember this. I'd come up from Atlanta and go with Buck, and he'd go around the area, and he was reviving that homeowners association. He had talked with the homeowners, and they would, pay dues, and he actually revived the Mirror Lake Improvement Association. It is, and I checked this week with some folks, Mirror Lake Improvement Association, as their website states, is a 501(c) organization. Buck made several attempts to get federal money to dredge Mirror Lake before he was the mayor and while he was the mayor. I remember he would travel to Washington to try to get funds, and his target was the United States Department of Agriculture. I vaguely remember he was working with the Congressman Heath Schuler. He came very close. I remember he was so despondent. He said he needed one signature an hour away, and he thought he would have gotten $1 to $1.5 million to dredge the Mirror Lake. After leaving the mayorship, he continued to try to get Mirror Lake funding. But, around 2010, Buck started having declining health. He passed away in 2016. Other people took over the leadership role with the Mirror Lake Improvement Association, but no concrete plan to dredge the lake was developed, or any major effort was made to try to raise funds after Buck's tenure. Pat Cleason, the head of the association, came to me and asked me to have the town dredge the lake. And as the mayor, Pat remembers this, I wasn't enthusiastic about my response to that request. Well, Pat didn't give up. Pat and his group went to work and developed a dredging plan working with river sand. There was a Mirror Lake meeting where the plan was presented. And to be quite frank, I was impressed with the innovative approach to doing that dredging. I set up a meeting with town staff, and Pat shared the plan with Josh, Lamar Nix, and others. After that, Pat did a presentation to the town board where he shared the plans for the dredging project. And then I attended a Mirror Lake meeting, and there was a full audience here. And I committed as the mayor, I said, you've got a plan, and I'll work with you to try to get funding to dredge Mirror Lake. I didn't know exactly how we could do it, but I thought we could build some partnerships and so forth and bring about that possibility of dredging the lake. In 2023, I had Kevin Corbin and Carl Gillespie come and speak at one of my community coffees. And then after the coffee, I convinced them to go to the lake where Pat was there and some other folks. And we talked with the legislators right at the bridge about the need to dredge that lake. And we talked about the association that they had raised $500,000. They were planning on starting the dredging, but we needed help. And they talked to us about it and explored possibilities and asked that we send the proposal that Pat had developed, which we did. We sent that to the legislators to see if the state would fund it. And to be quite frank, I was in a rush because if you remember, you had the Inflation Reduction Act. There was a lot of federal money during that time for water projects. And we put in a request for money to address our pre-clarifier tank at the water plant and Mirror Lake because it's a part of the watershed. And we thought that being able to dredge that would help on securing more quality water for our water plant. So that was where it was, that we had put in the request, had no idea what would happen. At the end of the legislative session, it was a biennium, we got notice that the water plant was funded. And to be quite frank, after that date, they were about to go and adjourn. And I kind of thought, well, Mirror Lake just didn't get funded. But at the last, literally 11th hour before they adjourned, our representatives were able to get that passed to where we got $5 million to dredge the lake. The town would be the agency to oversee the grant. So I appreciate everything that Representative Gillespie and Senator Corbin did to get that funding for us. And then the next step we had to do, following state requirements on contract agreements, and we'll do it with bidding on phase 2 and 3 and 4 and so forth. We had to hire an engineering company to oversee that, and we selected McGill Associates. And they developed that engineering report, that study that we reviewed last week. And I want to just say this, and maybe people think I'm overly defensive, maybe I am, but I've written about this in the newspaper in my column. I've done videos where I've mentioned this. I've done radio shows where I've mentioned this. I've gotten some feedback, but not a great deal about, the procedures and how we should follow the dredging process. So that's kind of a little history. Some people will say, well, what has the town done to protect Mirror Lake in the past? We've just, I'm very sensitive that some people just think, well, we haven't done anything to protect the lake. Let me just go over a couple of them. We got a grant to do that crating filtering system at the park that was helping with stormwater runoff. We took over and had Calisager Drive paved so the sediment wouldn't wash into it. That was done started up during Mayor Trott's administration. And then we have some of the strongest erosion control ordinances in the state that we try to follow. And then finally, some people talk about Riverwalk was a great cause of the sedimentation. Under Mayor Mullen's administration, the town went to court with Riverwalk about some erosion problems. I got involved because I took pictures from a canoe one day when I saw some sediment going into the river and the lake. I sat in on the court trial in the negotiations and things, and the administrative judge that heard that case came back to the town and says, you can't make a case, you can't really document how much sediment actually went into the lake and the water shed to cause damage. But I credit the town for making that effort. Other people have said that Mirror Lake, one of the problems that we're now addressing with phase 1 and the association is doing the dredging around the Hicks Road Bridge. When that was put in, they say the state just piled up dirt from the footers in the lake, and that exacerbated the problem of sedimentation. That might be the case, but I don't know. I will say that my former father-in-law and mayor was very gung-ho about trying to dredge Mirror Lake. He wanted to dredge Big Creek because the plan was to improve the water quality there with our water intake systems. Buck even had the idea of buying a dredger for the town, and the town people would actually dredge both Mirror Lake and Big Creek. And then he had this idea, well, we can also rent it out to other towns that need dredging and so forth. That never happened. One of the reasons it never happened was residents on Big Creek started putting up barriers about giving the town access. They wanted compensation if the town was going to put a dredging system or something near it or on their property and so forth. And the town finally decided not to dredge Big Creek and in fact created the water intake above the dam at Lake Sequoia that we used as an alternative. So that's kind of the overview of some of the things that have happened up to this point. Some people have been talking at the engineering meeting about how do we maintain the lake once the dredging is done so we don't have more sedimentation coming and have to do this again, catch basins and so forth. That's a pretty complicated process, which would cost money. And how do we protect our these impoundment areas? One thing that we won't talk about tonight, but it's something that maybe we need to look at, because I remember when I first became mayor, it was a hot topic, and that would be to ensure that we take care of these impoundments. We might need to consider creating a stormwater utility fee. Some people talk about a special service district for Mirror Lake. I don't think that's feasible, but a stormwater utility fee is something that in the long run, we might need to look at as a town, not just to protect Mirror Lake or Lake Sequoia, but our whole watershed. But as we develop, we have more issues and challenges about controlling sediment. So that's kind of my overview. What I will do now, if anybody from the public has any questions, please come up and ask your questions, and then we will throw it open to our engineer and our town board for a discussion. Don't have any takers, I believe, on the questions and so forth.
I have some things I'd like to see.
Well, I'm ready to throw it open. And Mike, you're with us too. If anybody needs to ask, the board needs to ask Mike any more questions about the options. And also that recent calculation he did this week concerning the cost of actually restoring the area around Mill Creek to a part of the lake again. So Commissioner Patterson, ask away.
Well, comment away. I was actually on the board when Buck started, Mayor Trott started trying to get Mirror Lake dredged. Even at that time, I thought it was a Mirror Lake problem, not necessarily a town problem, because the town has other impoundments that could be dredged too. But what we have now is a changing situation. We had our water intake at the weir of Big Creek, and so when we went through in the 90s, the water supply watershed, all those rules and riparian areas and setback areas and minimum lot sizes and all those kind of impervious surface and all those kind of things. It was really because that Big Creek was still very undeveloped. Okay. And so we were using that as our water supply, and we moved it down into kind of almost where the arm of Lake Sequoia, the Big Creek arm of Lake Sequoia, because we didn't frankly have enough volume there. Okay. And we since that time, we have expanded our drinking water plant at least twice. And I think it's now a 2 MGD plant per day. And even then because of the siltation in the Big Creek arm, which again, partly was just natural effect and partly was the release of the dam up there at Skyline, we filled up with sediment. So we've moved it down to the big dam, which we worked in the 90s very hard to get Lake Sequoia designated as a water supply, drinking water source. And the state has to approve those things. As we can't just say, okay, we're going to start taking our drinking water out here or there or any other way. So to me, it has always been a water quality, and equality means not any sort of pollutants, including sediment, but other pollutants too. And so at that time, one of the things referenced all these Upper Colossagia watershed things, and I have one from 20, I have one from 2003, and 2003, and this is the final one of 2004. And some of the things that you have said is that what we have done to mitigate this and make this not be so hard, difficult anymore, or not have to do it again. But we also did a lot of things to improve the water quality. And if you look, one of the things is we sewered a lot of the area around Mirror Lake, because a lot of those lots are, you know, a quarter-acre lots. They don't have sufficient area to have septic system. And so one of the things that we did was we started sewering all that area there that was going to be in our drinking water supply. That also allowed us, as soon as we did that, we started paving all those roads, whether it was be Hickory Hill, whether it be Dogwood, Azalea Circle, Wingina, Wine Oak, all those ones that were not even town roads. We went ahead and paved them, because we know that a lot of the sedimentation problem came from our non-paved roads. We changed our ordinances not to allow non-paved roads anymore. Everybody has to pave their road now. All developments and subdivisions and anything else have to have paved roads, which we had to change at that time. From this 2004 Upper Colossagia watershed, and the Upper Colossagia is not just Big Creek, it's also, I think the Colossagia technically starts at the dam. All the other ones are called tributaries of the Colossagia, or they have another kind of term to them. Certainly the one that I was on, which is the one that comes into Mirror Lake, was called the tributary of the Colossagia. Nobody I have ever found had a name for that creek, or that stream. So the strategic plan at the time from 2004 was to prevent erosion and sedimentation pollution. And so we started doing that. We started paving all those roads, and we started with the ones up there that were above the Big Creek arm of Lake Sequoia, okay, and the ones that were in the Mirror Lake area, because we knew that was where a lot of our sediment was coming from. We paved all those, even though a lot of those were private roads, and Lamar can probably say, I think one of them was actually even a state road that we got them to give to us so that we could actually pave it, because they need a 60 or 40-foot right of way, and they would never go in there and pave it and do that. So we paved those. We paved Colossagia Drive. We started paving. In the last 5 years, we've spent almost $1 million paving unpaved roads, including Upper Lake, Lower Lake. We got the state to give us the part of Upper Lake that we don't own, so we could pave that. We have in the budget this year the last unpaved road in Highlands, because not only does it Highlands drain to Mirror Lake, it also drains to Lake Sequoia. So part of it drains through the Country Club Lake and then down into that arm of Lake Sequoia, which also is silted up tremendously over the time. Certainly, I used to canoe all the way up to 106 with no problem, and you can't do that anymore. So it's not just Mirror Lake that's been doing this. So we did all those kind of things to prevent that sedimentation. We also have the ordinances, as you say, even just as recently as we've had code enforcement officers, but we had them to have to do multiple things. Now we have one that is a primary job is sedimentation control. And as you have seen from our reports over the last few months, they're out there he's out there all the time, making sure that all those sedimentation, every building lot and all the rest of those things are being under control. So we have done a lot. The town, I'm not saying we've done everything we could have, but we have done a lot to make this, the sediment problem go away. As a matter of fact, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, we had a private road up in Sherwood Forest or someplace that they wanted us to pave. It's not our road. We decided to pave it because of the environmental concerns of it washing out all the time and it being basically over top of the stream that goes into that end of Mirror Lake. And we paved that. The management of runoff and non-point source solution, the stormwater thing. Stormwater, this is a 2004 when I think it was the AR something, the American Relief Act that was under Bush 2, started under Bush 2 and then continued under the Obama administration, that's where we got a water. And we were shovel ready with the crate thing. And that would help with, it was also our stormwater, but it also helped with retention and detention of the water so that it didn't rush into Mill Creek right away and erode away those soils. So we retained the water or detained the water, and then we retained a lot of the pollutants. And we were shovel ready in 2008 or 9, whenever that came about, because we'd already done the preliminary work to get that done. So we weren't waiting around. But it takes time to do some of these things. Elimination of the sewer system, that was what we did around Mirror Lake. And then after that, we went and paved everything there. We've sewered around Harris Lake now. We've sewered around parts of the country club, which drain into Sequoia, because that is now our primary water supply watershed intake. That's also allowed us, or made us actually have to extend what was our watershed critical area up into that area of kind of west of the bridge there on Mirror Lake. That is now part of our critical area, which would meet any of the criteria that we have there in our lot size now. But one of the things we did was we sewered it and we paved everything. So we've been working on this for a long time. And because of that, to me, it is a water quality problem, not just not just dredging Mirror Lake for any sort of aesthetic reason or historic reason or any of those other type of things. The other thing that you have to remember is we know a lot more about things like wetlands and things like that than you would have traditionally back in the 50s when all this started. And I would say that to me anyway, one of the benefits of the siltation part of that arm of Mill Creek into the lake is because it filters a lot of what runs out of the automobiles and off the roads in Highlands. I mean, there's a lot. Think about what happens 3 days after we get a snowfall and we pile it all up and it all turns black. Our snow turns black. Okay, that's coming off of the automobiles. And if it's not on the snow, where it is in the snow, it melts and it runs right off into our water supply watershed. So I think those are the kind of things that we have to think about. Is it's sediment, yes, but it's also the natural pollutants or unnatural, man-made, anthropogenic pollutants that suddenly run off of our town. So I don't think that we have necessarily dropped the ball. I think it makes more sense to do the sedimentation control and the stormwater runoff control prior to dredging. But I think the dredging, to me anyway, is a part of the water quality thing. And so particularly with the changes in the regulations of wetlands and things like that, it makes more sense. One of the things that a lot of the critical areas are supposed to have in a water supply watershed is riparian areas where you have setbacks that allow what runs off of lawns and things like that to go through a system that is a filtration system, basically a natural filtration system. And that's what some of those riparian areas can be. And so I don't want to say exactly, I don't want to tell y'all exactly what I think we should, well, I do want to tell you what I think we should do. But I don't want to tell you that what we shouldn't do. But to me anyway, permitting wise, all the rest of that wise, I think what was laid out by the engineers from the preliminary engineering study is a very logical way of doing it, and now is the time to do it. We're also looking at things like capacity. We're looking at floodplains and all the rest of that stuff that will be, because those are things that we have to consider. But I would do the one that they recommended, which would be dredging of the major part of the lake, leave all of the wetlands areas, because as they pointed out, they'll have to get what's called an individual permit to do those things. And I know there are things that they call docks there. We just repurpose them as lakeside patios, or let's say wildlife for nature viewing areas and listening areas, so you can see the ducks and the stars and hear the crickets and the kingfishers and the mosquitoes, whatever. Because that's really not a lake that you can do a lot of boating on. As we're not talking about Lake Glendale or Lake Chillicothe or any of those kind of things. So to me, anyway, I don't think that I'm not saying that the town has done everything that they could have, but I think that the town has made significant progress over the last 20 years to keep the siltation out, to keep our water quality up, given the fact that we are dealing with something that is already here. All this pavement was already here. Prior to the last 20 years, but we have had to move our water supply intake. Because of that, we need the critical area around Mirror Lake and the critical area around Lake Sequoia and those other things that have to be taken into consideration. So I think it is a water quality issue because it is our drinking water more than it is say, a recreation or enhancing somebody's property issue for the town. And I think that's what the grant was for. Was a water quality grant. Yeah. And so I think that should be the primary purpose.
Well, I told the senators the recreation, everything else would be good too, but the focus was on water quality.
Right, and the grant itself says nothing about recreation.
And those funds are targeted toward water quality enhancement.
Division of Water Quality.
Yeah. Pat was sitting, I don't know when he came in, but I couldn't see him. Do you have any comments, Pat, as a part of the discussion?
No, I appreciate Amy's statement and yours, Mr. Mayor. It was pretty much spot on. The one thing that you asked me to do after our first unveiling of our plan, if we can get some private support around this, it'll mean that the private community is vested.
Yes.
And that'll help us get funding. Once we got the funding, I totally agree with you. It's a water quality initiative, not a recreational initiative. There's a byproduct of some recreation occurring if we do the thing right. It's not a wetland litigation, it's water quality. So stay focused in that area. The people at McGill are doing a terrific job sort of adapting what we first brought to the table and enhancing it. And I say we just stay focused.
Okay. And as we said at the engineering meeting, if private sources want to come in and give more money to enhance the dredging and so forth, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read the McGill.
Balance
Yeah.
act.
I read the McGill, study today about Rockville. And I talked to John Bryant, our president partner, about that area. Seriously, if we were going to make that a lake, it would be hard pressed to do it for 20 years. I'm not negating their $2.5 million estimate, but that's just stretching.
No, it was 5 million.
5 million.
Five.
Full.
For full.
For the 6.5 acres or whatever.
Yeah.
The Mill Creek area is 2.5.
No, that was only half of it. Either way, it's 5 million. I just went.
But our phase 2 plan, which we've always stayed with, was to widen the Mill Creek channel to 11 feet, keep it at 4 feet, and go around the left. So I still like that plan. Things that have to go again.
So just,
Thank you.
I mean, I'm gonna be very brief.
Go ahead.
Just in adding up numbers, and I realize it eventually comes down to that. I'm sorry to say. We have $5 million, including engineering. If we dredge everything, back to its original state, quote unquote, including mitigation, et cetera, according to our engineer's preliminary numbers, it's in excess of $12 million. So somebody wants to give us 7, full speed ahead. But it's not going to happen between now and next Thursday. So, I mean, I'm in favor of 2A. I like on the Mill Creek side, I like opening up the pathway. I love canoes being able to go around it, accessing the big water, which is part of the 2A plan. It's their recommendation. It keeps us to where, you know, the town's not all of a sudden trying to come up with multiple $1 million. There's some questions that did come in from the joint email from a few folks over there, from Dan Evans and others, that I think some of them I can't answer and would be worthwhile sending that to our engineers just to say, hey, can you address these? One of the other things, you know, I know there's a contractor working there currently, and, you know, the engineers did speak with them for sake of determining what they're doing exactly so that they could take it into account with their planning. But I think it's also clear to understand that, I know they were listed as a stakeholder. I think that's a misstatement.
Yeah.
Because they're really not a stakeholder. But because this is a public project, this would be bid, would be bonded, everything would be done according to North Carolina bidding regulations. So I realize that's only one of 25 points on there, or questions. But I just want to, I think that's one thing. This is kind of town's decision, so to speak.
Right.
And like I said, if we had $12 million, we'd be having a very different conversation, but we got to be diligent with what is there. I do think it does make sense to open up that side from a standpoint of the channel to where everybody that's on the lake could get in a canoe and behind their house and get to the big water, bigger, relatively speaking, let's say, big water. But, you know.
So you like the 2A option?
Yeah, which includes that. Which includes at least removing the down trees and opening up the channel enough.
Well, but that's the 12-month permitting period because there are individual permits because it would be in.
Correct.
That's all considered wetland.
It'd be part of, it's not removing wetland. It's, according to the 2A, it's dredging the open channel and getting rid of the debris that's in it from a standpoint of like trees down, et cetera. That's the way I read it.
Well, the way I read it.
It was phase 3.
We did, that took in our engineers here, so he can answer the question, but the way I read it is that was the part that would be what they call it, the individual permitting, because it is a wetland. And you got 1/10 of an acre or something that you could disturb without it, and they've already done 1/100th of an acre or something, and so we get 0.09. Yeah, 0.09 % of an acre or something like that.
Right.
To use that as
Right.
the opening up of the channel.
Yeah, I mean, the Mill Creek Wetland Corridor. So it was really just enhancing the corridor. It was not, way I understood it, maybe we can ask, in 2A, where we're talking about the Mill Creek Wetland Corridor, is that including remediation and removal of and mitigation costs, or is that just dredging the open channel that's there?
It is both. It is dredging the open channel that's there, primarily trying to capitalize on what the agencies would consider to be open water in non-wetland areas. But in order to achieve a regular width through the entire length, we would end up impacting some of the fringe wetlands along that corridor. So it's a little bit of both, in that we are trying to capitalize on open water and reduce the amount of wetland impacts that would be necessary. But in order to get a channel all the way through there, it would definitely be some minor wetland impacts on the fringes of that channel. And if we're going to, in 2A, we had suggested connecting to the other arm that reaches up along Calisade Drive. And that segment definitely is not open water for probably a third of that segment. So all of that would also be considered wetland impacts.
Okay, so, and I know after further investigation, it was determined that it's a 3-to-1 with these small sections and edges. In order to widen, are they 3-to-1, or is that just a wholesale removal at 3-to-1 for mitigation?
Yeah, the 3-to-1 was brought forward in our later information on removal of half or all of the wetland, because we had some rather in-depth conversations with our environmental scientist on what does the agency look at when you go in and you say, I want to remove a fringe area along the perimeter of a wetland versus I want to remove the entire wetland. And the response was that basically the agencies are going to give more favor to a wetland system. And when you're removing the majority of or all of a wetland system, they're going to typically give you a higher mitigation ratio to meet in order to do that. So we're still fairly confident that we'll end up with either a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 ratio for what we have proposed in option 2A. And whereas if we went to the options that were considered in the latest memo that we put together, where it was 50% or 100%, that's where I believe we'd be looking at the 3-to-1. And I also might add that there was a lot of concern of whether or not the agency would allow a complete removal of the wetland to begin with. It was felt like there was, again, through those conversations, that it was likely that up to 50% was possible. Going to a full 100% removal would probably be a very steep permitting hill to climb.
Right. So you're looking at, I mean, even if you took away, if you were able to, and I'm just in mitigation costs alone, it'd be $750,000 just in mitigation fees in order to, if they allow it, since being roughly a 6.6 acre area of wetland, correct?
Correct. And the other issue that arises when we look at the 50% or the complete 6.6 acre removal is that the corridor that we were talking about being open water that we're trying to capitalize on, trying to make that a regular width all the way up to the bridge. As we remove the wetland in its entirety, that corridor also being looked at as a stream mitigation requirement. So the combined mitigation requirements for the 100% removal would be likely in the $2.5 to $3 million range, just for mitigation costs alone. And in the 50% removal, we're looking at about 1.2 to 1.5 million.
Wow.
I think probably, I mean, we don't even know what the main light dredging is going to cost. I mean, we have an estimate and it may be good or it may be.
Right.
You know, the way things have been going lately, it's probably low. I mean, we could hope that it's on the money. So I think the first thing we do is go ahead and do what we know we want to do, which is do most of the hydro dredging and then some of the walker dredging or whatever it is, the mechanical dredging of the heavier stuff.
Phase 1.
Upstream, yeah. But I think they need to go ahead and get the permitting and the bids, the design. I think it's the design phase is next.
Yeah.
Is that right?
The final design phase.
Final design. And so that we can bid it and even see what it's going to cost.
Right.
Because we may have to actually modify something after that.
So one question I have, the difference between option 2 and option 2A, when it comes to Mill Creek, it's the same amount of cubic yards removal. Can you explain to me the difference between 2A and 2 as it pertains to Mill Creek?
So 2A was what we were doing in 2A was offsetting the depth of removal in the open water areas to allow some removal of additional sediments in the Mill Creek area. So that's why the quantities are the same as far as dredge volume is concerned. But what we're representing is leaving some of the sediments in the deeper water areas of the lake area to compensate for the additional volume of material that we're looking to take out of both the existing channel and then that proposed wraparound channel for Mill Creek.
That's why the arrows are there, less in the downstream, more in the Mill Creek.
Yeah.
wetland.
Right.
That's why the cost was the same. I need to.
Correct.
For Mike. Then the question is, how do we proceed tonight? Or do we proceed tonight?
Personally, I think we're at the stage where we need to go with the first or the second phase, whatever, this first phase of this plan to do the deep water areas, leave the streams or the lakeside wetland areas, so that we don't have mitigation costs for that, and see where it gets us. He wants to do, it takes 6 months to do that permitting, and at the same time do the year permitting, which are the individual permits for the wetland area, which would be the Mill Creek area, and see, but while we would get the bids back and see where we are in money, because that might make a difference as to where we go further in the Mill Creek phase 3 or not.
So are you talking about option 2 or 2A?
Well, 2A, because that would start the permitting process.
Right, correct.
Okay,
Right. No, I'm in agreement with that.
but realizing that depending on the cost of 2, whether we do the A part or not is a.
Understand.
Yeah, it's gonna see what's coming out of that.
But they have to start the permitting process.
Correct.
You know, because, and I think we have a time frame on our grant, right?
So are you talking about going with 2A, because 2A is broken up into phase 2 and 3?
Yeah, but doing the design work for both phases, but because you got to start the permitting process.
Yeah.
Whether or not you proceed with the actual work is to be determined.
Money permitted.
It's the money determines that,
Correct.
right? But I don't
After
want
phase 2,
Right, exactly.
we know we want to do it. And go from there.
But
And that's where, if we've got the plan, if we were short, maybe some private money might come in to.
Well, and some of the
Make that
concerns are, this is going to be 3 or 4 years of action, but if we proceed ahead with the engineering, if we can do phase 2, great. Well, we're going to do phase 2. Phase 3, we will, money pending.
Right.
But we don't want to daisy chain them together. And phase 3, once we find out how much money we have, then start design, and then we're talking about 2 more years.
Right.
So, and like you said, we do have a limit. If we're doing that, I think we can get an extension on the money, I would think, based on permitting and everything else. But if we don't do it that way, I think potentially we're sending money back because of timing.
if we have any left over.
Yeah,
I
I think
hope
there's
so.
gonna have to be extensions to,
Cautiously optimistic.
Well,
for not just us, but many projects.
yeah, but, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think
get
they,
you're saying, Commissioner Weller, this is time sensitive.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to bulldoze anybody and I do want our engineer to address the specific questions to the report. That's very important of people asking questions. But at the same time, we got to at least pull the trigger on this part and keep
I
the ball
agree.
rolling.
Okay.
So,
and I think to a certain extent, there may be, a rationale for putting timeframes on it, so they do get them started. But realizing that nobody's going to be able to get them done because of permitting and all the rest of the things in those timeframes. And so you get an extension, but you have started work towards it, as opposed to getting an extension when it's just sitting in your bank
Right.
account making money.
correct.
They want to see it being used.
Yeah, they want us to be proactive.
Yeah.
So I make that motion to proceed with 2A.
But proceed with 2A. I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. And Mike, you've got the direction now.
And I would like the engineer to at least look over those questions and address them.
Okay,
appropriately.
we'll ask the
Some of them I
engineer to
can't
look at
answer,
those. I will say,
most of them.
part of those questions, some people are talking about the disruption of the construction. That's part of the construction plan that they account for how people negotiate and get around during.
And here's a question here's a loaded question, but how long is the actual engineering design process? I realize permitting is something different, but what is the length of time?
Let me go to the presentation
I just didn't.
where I brought up the schedule.
Okay. So that's, if we make
and-
that, based on the decision tonight, we can hold to that schedule?
He's talking about.
We will, at this point, we will definitely pursue this schedule as closely as we can. But we have a design period set up right now to start in the end of April and essentially be ready to go into the bidding phase for phase 2 as early as October 1. One of the reasons why I equivocate a little bit is that all incorporated into that design process is a permitting process. So we can't control how long it takes for agencies to respond to our submittals or how many times they want to come back and ask questions. So that may delay things longer than anticipated, but I believe that overall we're looking at something on the order of 5 to 6 months.
Okay. Well, I completely understand that aspect. But that's a good guide.
And Mike, I do believe you have Mr. Evans and the stakeholders' questions. As Commissioner Weller has stated, if you folks could address any of those questions that you can, if you haven't already, I know y'all been in contact with those folks. If there are any outstanding questions, if you could answer those, we'd appreciate that.
Not a problem. I did speak with a couple of the folks that were party to that memo at the public meeting that we were at last week. And hopefully the presentation addressed some of those issues at the time. We will try and go through and give you a written response to each one of those that we feel we can respond to. We'll coordinate that back through the town manager.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of Mike before we send him off to work?
Did we vote?
Did we vote? We did.
Yep, we did.
So it's option 2A. Thank you, Mike, for staying with us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and board members. We appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. All right. Our next item is the one that we added, and it's basically a discussion of legislative actions that are now being considered in Raleigh. And Nick, I know you have contacts in Raleigh. Let me just kind of go through some of these. If you'd like to weigh in on some, that'll be fine. But we all know that there's Senate Bill 291, the SDR bill, which would permit SDRs across the board in the state. And that is one of those bills, like all these bills, they're under committee review, and it's going to be kind of like the Kentucky Derby. There's going to be breakout of bills that actually move forward to the floors of both houses for votes. So we don't know where it is at this time. Then we had the SB 382 that was passed at the last minute in the last session that prohibits downzoning and permits non-conforming uses. There were a lot of people in municipalities at the league meeting, our annual legislative dinner, that was requesting that the legislature revisit that statute. And in fact, they have proposed Senate Bill 587 that addresses downzoning, but from what I read, the non-conforming uses clause still remains. But the big one that bothers me, and the League of Municipalities sent out a action alert to all municipalities, that is House Bill 765, Local Government Regulations Omnibus Bill. And the things that kind of concern the league is that it tends to take away some of the regulatory standards that local governments have had in land use and in zoning. But the thing that really bothered me, and I think a lot of people, for example, the village of Clemens has passed a resolution opposing this. In that omnibus bill, it says elected officials are subject to personal legal penalties for routine land use planning decisions. Also, there's a possibility that citizens appointed to local boards may be included in that penalty statute. I've talked to some folks about this, and they're saying if that were to go through, you would see a lot of mass resignations and people deciding they do not want to be reelected as an elected official in a municipality in North Carolina. It is, to me, a real concern. I plan on, as mayor, contacting our elected officials about this. If the town board wanted to join me in opposing this omnibus bill, I would certainly, encourage you to do so. But then there are also other bills, like about 15, House Bill 9. And Nick, I'm going to interpret what this means. Firearm discharge permits local ordinances. Does that bill mean that we have a ordinance now saying you cannot shoot a gun or hunt in the town of Highlands? Would that bill preempt that at the local level and permit those kind of things going on in town limits? I don't know if you've read the bill or.
I have not seen that one. I've seen all the other bills you've referenced. Are kind of on my radar, but that one I have not looked at.
And just flying through these, House Bill 373, Home-Based Business Act, expands home-based businesses permitted. I have a home business, an art studio and pottery, but this seems it would really open the floodgates on that. House Bill 369, Parking Lot Reform Modernization Act. That would be interesting to see what's happening. House Bill 627, accessory dwelling units permitted. And then there's another one, Senate Bill 95, accessory dwelling units. The issue there to me is if you don't, the intent would be, I would think, to provide workforce housing for workers, but if you don't have a provision against STRs, they will be STRs. And then the other bill that they have, Senate Bill 497, expand middle housing. Sounds great. That would mean that duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, and townhomes would be allowed in all residential areas. And I've even seen some bills where they would allow you to have 5 units, housing units on an acre of land across zoning districts. And then Senate Bill 713, limit local government environmental requirements. And then there's, I don't know if you know this one, Jeff, Senate Bill 736, Foundation Act Building North Carolina Housing Future. I think it might be to relax building codes, but I'm not sure.
We don't need that.
Yeah. So these are all the things that are going on. My real concern and the league's concern is HB 765, the Local Government Development Regulations Omnibus Bill. Commissioner Dotson, would you like to
I'd
weigh in?
love to make a statement.
Okay, go right ahead.
I'll try to make it short and as dispassionate as possible. The 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution reserved all rights to the states that were not given the United States government, paraphrased.
Yeah.
And that to me means there are people in areas different than the District of Columbia that know how to govern their areas better than the people of the District of Columbia. Ergo Raleigh. I think because of the states are smaller entities than the federal government. Municipalities are smaller entities than the state government. I think we know better how to govern our respective territories than an entity located hundreds of thousands of miles away from where we are. we're elected by our voters to do what's right for Highlands, as are the other municipalities in the great state of North Carolina. And we know what's best for our folks, and if we don't, they replace us. I would say shame on the current legislature for even considering these misguided, and I consider to be politically motivated bills. And with that thought in mind, I'd like for us to adopt the language in the Village of Clemens proclamation resolution as a resolution from Highlands and forward that sucker to Ron.
And our representatives.
Every damn one of them, ours and all the rest.
Okay. All right. And y'all had a copy of the.
I have, and I don't disagree with the sentiment, but I really would like to read these because I have not had it, I could not read them from lunchtime today or whatever. So I would really like to, I don't disagree with you on the basic principle of it.
Agree with me 110%.
When I read them,
once you've read.
but it's, I mean, I just have a hard, I don't mind just having a general consensus that we will consider it. And if we can all read them and in 48 hours say,
Special
do it,
meeting, we'll do
or a
it.
special meeting, I don't care what we do. I just want to read them before I say, by golly, Clemens, you got your stuff together and we're going to go with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And to echo what, some of what Buzz said is, we know what works, what our economy is, what our citizens want, what our environment is, what, you know, our history is, all those things better than somebody in Raleigh does. And one size does not fit all. And they required us to query our citizens, not just voters, but all of our citizens, to see what they wanted us to do. And we are mandated that every time we do a land use bill, to say if it is in compliance with the general consensus of the comprehensive plan. So why would you suddenly say, oh no, comprehensive plan that the people actually gave us doesn't apply anymore? They don't have an opinion, they don't have a vote, they don't have, I don't want to listen to their opinion. You're gonna do what Raleigh says to do.
But I don't disagree in the least. I just want to read it.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah,
read, I haven't
Yeah,
studied.
I don't disagree at all.
To me, it's just.
It doesn't one size fit all. It doesn't
counterintuitive.
fit Charlotte and Highlands. It doesn't fit Raleigh and Highlands. It just, I don't care what you do
We've
or how
got-
you do it.
Mountains with different slopes. I mean, look, we've got water supply issues,
Yeah.
different things.
Correct.
Mountain, Piedmont, coastal plain, they're not the same.
Yeah, 100% with,
Economies aren't the same.
thank
I
goodness.
guarantee you, do you discharge a firearm in downtown Raleigh? Somebody's gonna be.
Well, that, I would hope that one doesn't have legs if that's what it really is, but that's another story.
well, it seems to me this is time sensitive.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if we say, you know, I would like,
You would
48
say,
hours,
you would, if Commissioner Dotson made a motion, or he basically had, you would agree with that, provided we have time for everybody to read.
yeah, I may be 110, 200% on
Okay.
board.
Or even.
I just
or
want to
even
read them.
Add to it.
Yeah, and I mean, the general consensus, I would say I agree wholeheartedly, but I don't feel comfortable sending something off that I've not read them.
Shall Commissioner Dotson and I draft a response?
You could,
That's
yeah,
And then we
Get
will
something
share it
ready.
with the board, and if y'all are in agreement, then at some point next week, we will send it.
Or do we want to set a meeting now? Because we have.
Or we can
48
set a
hour,
meeting.
Then you,
we can-
oh no, today's Thursday, it'd be Monday. Oh, yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah, but after the
Monday.
weekend,
Monday.
we could,
Can we set one for Monday? I mean, I don't mind. It's not,
It's
as long
gonna
as
be-
we can read the document
Right, it's
okay.
gonna be
and we
quick.
can, or if it's I don't know how long it's gonna take to draft something, but I mean, it is, and I will bring it up. It's Easter weekend, so you have family and otherwise, so it can be Tuesday, as long as we can have time to put it together. And then we get together for just the official action. I'm good with that.
Josh and Gibby, according to a special meeting notice, how long do you have to have?
48 hours.
So it would, and we're not gonna be in the office tomorrow.
The office is
So
closed
maybe
tomorrow,
next
Wednesday.
Wednesday would be the
Wednesday,
part
probably.
of
Our
that.
attorneys can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we recess the meeting and choose a time to reconvene, then you don't have to notice it because it's an open session.
I'd rather do a notice of it.
Okay.
I mean, I'd rather just close this one out tonight when we're done but if we could have it Wednesday if we make notice on Monday morning.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's
Right.
do that. Let's do Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
We will
Then
target
just close it
Wednesday.
out. and-
I always like to let the citizens know what we're doing and
Okay.
then just recess, they may say, well, y'all never let me know what's happening.
Right.
And I would prefer that we do this in the afternoon.
Wednesday afternoon.
So we need 48 hours notice, right? So
Yeah.
if we do it in the morning Monday, it's got to be in the afternoon.
Yeah. Okay.
We're getting technical.
All right, we'll set it up for Wednesday, sometime Wednesday afternoon. All right.
I hate to be, do we want to just look at our schedules while we're sitting here?
Yeah, let me.
I think Wednesday probably be the earliest.
Yeah, that'd be the earliest we could do it.
Yeah, Wednesday's fine.
And I'm tied up till 4 o'clock, but I can do at 4. Or after.
I'm
That's
open,
fine.
I'm open Wednesday, I'm not open Thursday.
Yeah, I'm fine. Okay,
So anytime. Y'all let us know.
4 o'clock.
4? Okey-doke. I'll
He
put
can make it, you can make it at 4. Correct?
Yep, I can.
Okay.
And are we gonna have a resolution at that point, or are we just gonna agree?
They're gonna draft one, correct?
We'll draft one.
Okay,
You
so
and
we're
I'll
gonna
draft
have a
one.
resolution ready for consideration at that point.
Yes, that's right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We're now at the next item, and that is the closed session pursuant to GS 143-318.11A3 to consult with attorneys in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to consider and give instructions to an attorney concerning and the handling or settlement of the Huff versus Town of Highlands lawsuit and the appeal of a special use permit number 021225A and the town outdoor recreation policies. That is the purpose of this special closed session or closed session. Do I have a motion for it to move into closed session? Do I have a?
So moved.
Okay. All in favor? Just a second. We're in closed session. All in favor?
Well, she asked a question.
Yeah, you said something after the recreation policy is.
Correct. Our town outdoor recreation policies.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
Next star.
Yes, sir.
yeah, just clarification is to consider legal aspects of the policy. So.
Okay.
Okay,
Of the town
got
outdoor recreation policies. Okay. All in favor? We're in closed session. We'll take a short break, Nick and Bob.
it.